Howdy. Welcome back to Dion Talk. I think that's not on the right place. This is going to be another one of my nice short live streams that lasts as long as the questions do. And last week I talked about taking a cruise, and that is not today. That is going to be next week. So someday I am going to be on a cruise, and Matt the Lumberjack Landlord is going to fill in for me, but not today. I want to talk today about a few things that stop people from retiring early, especially when there's already enough things working against us. And some of these things are things that people do because we think it's normal. Like we've literally been told since we were kids that it is normal to work towards a pension. It is normal to save to retirement. It is normal to stay at one job for a long time. There are a lot of things that we do because they're normal, but it's also normal to retire after 65. So when we talk about retiring early, what I want to talk about is things that you're doing that you can change to make it more likely that you're going to be able to retire early. The first thing is you have to understand you can do it. So it's the mindset. Can you retire early? How many people do you know that have retired before the age of 65 and maybe even before the age of 62, where some people start hitting their Social Security and maybe they have a pension because they're from our parents or our parents' generation, where it was normal to do that. But I'm talking retiring in your 50s, your 40s, or in your 30s. I believe the average individual can reach financial freedom and make work completely optional in 10 years or less. So whenever you start your financial journey, you have a time clock that starts ticking of about 10 years where you can make work optional. And for a lot of us, making work optional doesn't mean we don't work. It means we find a job that we like. Because if you find something you love to do, you never work again. Doesn't mean you have to retire early. For some of us, we change our minds and we decide I want to actually just travel and enjoy the financial freedom that I bought with my machine that made work optional. And there are three main paths. There's 1,000 paths in these three, but there's three main ways to reach financial freedom. The first one is to start and grow a business and grow the business to a point where somebody else runs the day-to-day so that you don't have to go into work every day, but the business generates enough money to cover all of your living expenses. The second is to invest in stocks and grow either a dividend portfolio or a well-diversified portfolio where it's large enough to where you can take out 4% to live on, and the average growth during an average year, not like we're seeing this year, you would be able to continue to see your portfolio grow even though you were living on 4% or less. There is the way that I chose, which is buy and hold real estate, where I buy rental properties that produce cash flow that is more than what it costs me to live. And then work is optional. So when I'm talking about retiring early, I'm actually talking about not being able to just go work whatever job you want. I mean, you don't ever want to do anything. You don't ever want to ever have to do anything that generates income. So if you had to have a job, you're not retired early. You're not financially independent. So the first thing to get over is that mindset. Can you do it? And some of us don't have an example of people who did it. I actually was kind of fortunate. I know two friends who retired, one at 50, one at 55 with rental portfolios. So I had that example that it's possible. The second thing that I want you to focus on, and this is the thing that can make it really hard to retire early, and there are some disagreement on a couple of the things I'm going to talk about here, but it's consumer debt. If you owe money to anything, a person, an entity, a business, it doesn't matter, that doesn't give you a future return or more money back than what it's costing you for that debt, so paying for things like your car, your house that you live in that is not currently a rental and you're not tapping the equity of and you're not selling in the future, but I mean, right now it's costing you money to live there. Your credit cards. And credit cards are one of the worst ones because they usually have adjustable rates. And when the Fed raises rates, credit card interest rates go up. And a lot of people fall into the trap of buy now, pay later. I have 6 or 12 months of interest free, so I don't feel the pain of taking money out of my account and paying for something. If you don't feel the pain of buying something, you're more likely to buy more things. That TV, that instead of layaway, from the dinosaur days when you would pay for something and eventually it was paid off, you can go pick it up. They now let you take it home and you just owe them in the future. So you don't feel the pain. So you're more likely to buy more things to create more consumer debt. Things like a boat, an RV, unless you're house hacking your RV. These are expenses that usually come along with debt. And it seems normal. Not just you, but me personally. One, two, three, four, five. I know five people who have RVs worth over $80,000. One of those people is house hacking their RV, where they Airbnb'd out their house. The others, it's just an expense that they added to their lifestyle that doesn't generate money. They're not using the RV version of Turo where you rent it out. So deciding that you can retire early is the first step. Second is avoiding consumer debt. And how I did it was I focused on anything that had an interest rate above 6%, I would focus and pay off. Anything that was less than 6%, I would make the payments, but I would start investing so that the cash flow from investments would pay off that debt later, because I can get a better return on my investments than that lower than 6% interest rate. The third thing I want you to think about is saving. If you can't save while you're not making a lot of money, it's not like you're going to magically develop the habit to save when you start making more money. Most people who say they can't save, they get a raise, so they can't save, but now they can get the better computer, the Sea-Doo, the whatever it comes with that raise, the nicer apartment. If you get the nicer house, it means nicer furniture, nicer streaming services, because you have to fill that house now that you have the bigger place. Learn to save when you don't have a lot so that you can get better at saving when you do have a lot. And I've actually talked with some people and I've asked them, how much can you save? And most people say, well, right now I don't make a lot, so I can't save anything. So I asked the question, can you save $1? Can you take $1 that you were going to either spend at McDonald's or spend on something else and put it in a drawer and not touch it? Most people can take $1 from what they make in a month and put it in a drawer and not touch it. If you can save $1, now you can improve it, because once something is measured, it can be improved. If you're not saving, it's a fuzzy number that you can't improve. But as soon as you pick that $1, can you save 5? 5 doesn't sound like a lot, but it's the habit of this is the money that comes in that I'm going to save, that you can then improve and grow as you make more money. So start saving something no matter what you're making now. I have a friend. He's the one who retired at 55 with 30 rental properties. One of the first years that I met him, he had started as a real estate agent. He was an agent. His format was to work in a brokerage as a real estate agent. And over the couple of decades, as the best deals would walk in the door, he would buy them himself. But in his first year, he made $13,000 in real estate commissions. He saved $6,000. He lived in a friend's garage. And in my mind, he's still the most frugal person I know, even though he's probably now one of the top 5 wealthiest people that I interact with. But that first year, he learned how to save, and then it improved as he made more money. He's having the same struggle that I am, where at some point we need to figure out, how do I spend the money that's coming in instead of how do I save for the next investment? Saving has a couple of steps. And so this next thing is a barrier to retiring early that a lot of people forget, because we think, I'm going to save, I'm going to invest. Hardly anybody talks about increasing your income. And that can be through side hustles. It can be through overtime. If you're my age or older, we came from the generation where our parents' parents has had pensions. And we were raised by generations who thought longevity at a company was the best way to get rewarded. You can climb the corporate ladder, you can get raises, you can get promotions. And what we're finding out now in the last 20 years, thank you, millennials, something good had to come out of each generation. The people who are changing jobs every 2 to 5 years end up making the most money, because instead of that 5 to 7 cost of living raise every year, you're getting a 10 to 20% increase by going to work for a competitor who is happy to take your skills that you've learned, use it at their company, but take something away from a competitor. So there's more reason or incentive for that employer to give you more money. Develop side hustles. And sometimes, and I have seen this in a message, that side hustle means you work in a highly paid industry and overtime. When I worked in law enforcement, I can go and sit at a construction site and make sure nobody drove through all the cones and get $200 an hour to sit at a construction site. That's a side hustle when you're a cop. You might work in a field where overtime, if you're at a prevailing wage job, can be $100 an hour. Line that up. Sometimes it's developing a completely different side hustle. For me, it was playing World of Warcraft and EverQuest and Ultima Online, to show my age, any of the gamers out there. Taking things in a virtual game and selling it on eBay. That was a side hustle that I had. Increase your income as you're working to learn how to save and avoiding life creep, at least for the first 5 years. Don't get the nicer, newer car. Don't take the vacation. Don't get the bigger house. With that housing being your largest expense, most people should be focusing on some form of house hacking. And it's really weird. When we rent, it's very common to house hack. A lot of renters, a lot of my tenants have roommates. But some switch in our head goes off that when we buy the property and we own the mortgage, like that's our mortgage we're paying every month, we're resistant to having roommates. Or buy a duplex, have roommates on the other side to where you're not sharing any living space. There's a lot of ways to house hack to reduce or eliminate our largest expense. So, can you do it? Avoid consumer debt and reduce consumer debt if it has high or adjustable variable rate interest. Learn how to save, increase your income. And then here's the thing that cracks me up, and I'm actually a victim of this, of my own creation. Avoid high risk. And for some of us, that's like, don't start a business because it can fail. Well, that's a high risk. The more you educate yourself, the more you prepare, the less risk you're going to take there. If you're going to invest in stocks, an index fund is less risky than an individual stock. If you're going to invest in something like crypto, make sure it's money that you can afford to watch it play long and not worry about the money you're going to lose. If it's playing the lottery, when I was really like living, I want to say paycheck to paycheck, but there were probably paychecks where debt carried me to the next paycheck sometimes. I would not only play the lottery, but I would gamble. I'd go to the casino. I'd play 21. Card counter, very easy system, very simple system. Not good enough to win all the time, but enough to where I felt confident that I could win sometimes. So if I had $20 to my name, I'd go to the casino and I'd play. Because if I lost $20, what else? I'm just as broke as I was before, but I could win a couple $100 and then leave. As soon as I started making money, like real money, my rentals started kicking off more money than my W-2 was, and I still had both coming in, and I still have my side hustles. I don't think I've gambled in 10 years. Like I've done, let's have a Texas Hold'em card night at somebody's house or something. That's more for the evening than going to a casino, because I now realize how hard I worked for that $20, and taking that $20 and putting it towards the fund that I'm going to use to invest is much more impactful than thinking it's only $20. What if I lose it? So until you're financially free and you have money to throw away that will not be needed to contribute to your financial freedom, stop gambling. We call the lottery a tax on the poor. There's a bunch of statistics on it's like $300 to $500 the average person spends in a year on lottery tickets. Completely wasting that money. You might hear about, or you might even know somebody who wins the lottery, but you're not even going to hear about a lot of the people that you know that reach financial freedom by investing. Another thing that is a barrier to retiring early, and it's a mistake that causes some people to have to return to the workplace after they retire early, and don't be that guy or girl, is not accounting for inflation. If you're using the idea that my investing now pays my living expenses. So BiggerPockets says this really well. They say, don't get your cash flow to just more than your living expenses and then retire. And I agree. I think you should have multiples, 3 or 4 or 5 times your cost of living from passive income, and then retirement is more likely to be successful. Because if you just pass it, look at the inflation we've had in the last 2 years. If you retired 2 years ago with just enough money covering your living expenses, you'd be back to work today. So my suggestion is to invest in something that grows with inflation. One of the reasons why I chose buy and hold real estate is not just the tax benefits and not just the cash flow and appreciation and principal pay down that we experience every month, but it's because rents go up. Since we've started tracking the data in 1914, there has never been a period where rents went down in Class C or Class B neighborhoods, which is what I invest in, Class C. I know the lumberjack landlord likes to invest in a B area, find the C property, and then upgrade it to the B class. But In 2009 is the only time we saw rents go down since 1914, and that happened to Class A properties. There are places where if the car manufacturers move out of an area or Silicon Valley gets really hit hard during the dot-com crash, yes, rents in an area can go down. But if you're following my content, you know that there's two ways to diversify rental properties. One is to keep your properties more than 10 miles apart, close to several economic drivers like a base, a port, a college, hospital, Boeing or Amazon or a beach or some kind of attraction that brings people in, or a large population. And then I diversify the tenant base, about a third military, a third Section 8, a third working and retired. So I'm building a portfolio that's expecting, not hoping for, but expecting a recession or a stock market crash or a prolonged government shutdown, and my portfolio will survive. So I chose an investing strategy to retire early with a strategy that grows with inflation, because rents continue to go up. And yes, insurance and taxes can go up, but your mortgage, as long as you're using fixed rate debt, doesn't increase very much. And then here's one of the ones where people might disagree. This is one of the things that's stopping the most people from retiring early. There's two things that you're going to somebody might disagree with. The first one is saving for retirement. If you are contributing to a Roth, a 401k, just any kind of retirement account, and you are locking money up until you're 59 and a half, that is stopping you from putting money to work now that can make retiring early easier. And there are some people that say, well, you just self-direct the blah, 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 and a bunch of confusing things that I don't even want to take the time to learn, because what you're doing is you're taking passive income from real estate that you could invest in real estate, which then benefits from depreciation, and you're putting it into an investing category that's taxed as earned income. So you lose the biggest benefit that I see in real estate of the tax benefits. The tax benefits of retirement accounts don't come anywhere close to the tax benefits of real estate. It's almost like, and this is, conspiracy theory 101, we have a Congress full of people who own rental properties and they own real estate, and they keep coming up with laws that benefit people who own real estate. It's so weird. I don't know what the odds are of that happening. So I would contribute for the match if you're getting it. I could do the math. Even I do that. I want the 3% match that our company does. I see it as free money just like everybody else, but it irritates me. Locking that money up that's not paying me today, not getting appreciation on multiples of what I paid because I used leverage, not experiencing principal pay down every month, and not getting the benefits of depreciation like I would lose if I put it into a self-directed retirement account and used that to invest in real estate. So that's the one some people disagree. They think retirement's the way to go. 12% of people die before the age of 60. So a lot of people that are saving for retirement aren't going to get very many years to enjoy that. So I want to retire, make work optional decades before what we used to consider normal. I didn't start investing or even thinking about investing until I was 40. So I had done it at 30 or 20, like some of you are. You might have 3 or 4 times the decades that I have to enjoy financial freedom. That's the goal for me, to teach you how to do that. And here's the other one that some people may disagree with. This is the thing that is stopping a lot of people from retiring early. Diversifying. A lot of people listen to Warren Buffett because he's classified as one of the greatest investors of our time. Totally have respect for him. And he talks about diversifying because he's wealthy. His partner, Charlie Munger, who they've been partners for decades, at a convention where they were on a panel one time, kind of irritated Warren because Warren was talking about diversifying. And then Charlie goes, that's the stupidest thing you could do. Diversifying will keep you poor. You focus on one asset class. You learn crypto. You learn stocks. You learn how to grow your business. You learn your strategy that you chose in real estate, whether it's wholesale flipping, BRRRR, buy and hold, local, distance, storage, rental. All the different ways. You learn that one strategy that works for you. You master it to then work your way to wealth, become financially independent, retire early. And now to protect that wealth, once you are wealthy, now you diversify. Diversifying in the beginning means that you're going to chase 5 rabbits. And if you chase 5 rabbits, you starve. You need to find your rabbit and go after that one until you master it and have reached financial freedom. And now you diversify to protect it. And then another thing to really consider as I wrap up the roadblocks to retiring early is most of us think that when we retire, we're going to need more money than we need now. There is one thing that for most of us does go up in expense, but almost everything else comes down. For some of us, we're receiving healthcare from our employer. So you're paying a portion and the employer is paying the majority, 80 or 90% of that healthcare cost. So when you retire, you are now going to have 100% of that instead of just your 10 to 20%. So that cost might go up a little bit. If you stay in the United States, you can geo arbitrage to almost anywhere outside of the United States, and healthcare is a tenth of what it is here. Yay, capitalism, which I'm actually a fan of. Just healthcare kind of sucks here. But everything else, while you're working, you're being taxed at the highest rate. Most passive income is not taxed at the highest rate. You have things like depreciation and write-offs to use. We have and a lot of people in this space of retiring early call these 3 categories of retirement. Your go-go years. So up to 65, you're going to travel a lot. You're going to do fun things. You're going to do the zip lining and you're going to do the things that cost money. So when that first retire early between, for me, early 50s to 65, I'll be spending a lot more money than I will from 65 to 75, which is your go slow years. I'm still going to be spending money, but I'm not going to be traveling as much. I'm not going to be doing the zip lining. I'm not going to be doing all the things that cost as much money. And then you have 85 and older, the no-go years. So go slow, no-go. Your expenses diminish as you go on because you eventually do start to hit things like Social Security. You hit things like Medicare, Medicaid, things that can bring down some of our largest expenses. You are not going to reach financial freedom unless you choose to do it. And then if you put roadblocks between you and doing it, you're going to make it harder and take longer. And then you're more likely to give up because it's the easiest thing that we can do is go to work, put our head down, just do our job, work more than 40 hours a week for more than 40 years to retire on less than 40% of what we made. That's the American dream. That sucks. And my hope is that you find an investing strategy where you take your money and you put it to work and you take these roadblocks and you get them out of the way. Reduce or eliminate your housing expense, or maybe don't buy the too much house. You are going to enjoy driving a Toyota Camry like it's a sports car than you would if you bought the lumberjack landlord's buying the Lamborghini when he gets that and has to drive it like a Toyota Corolla on the roads. He's going to enjoy driving a slow car fast than a super fast car forced to drive slow. Overspending is going to be a big barrier. Once you reach it, yes, you can choose different options to expand your life at that point. I drove 15, 20-year-old cars until 2018. I started cycling through what I would call wasteful cars, but not in the first few years. You do that later. I believe, and I say this on my channel, and I think it's actually true, the average individual can reach financial freedom in 10 years or less, even if you're not starting from the best position, and make work optional. Get the roadblocks out of the way. You make the choices that impact your life. Sometimes things happen that are outside of our control. The more things that we get out of the way that we have control of, the less those things that we don't have control of are going to stop us in our tracks. So the live stream tonight is going to go on as long as the questions come in. So I'm looking forward to questions. Next week, I'm going to be on a cruise, and I don't know how the Wi-Fi is going to be. So the current plan is for Matt the Lumberjack Landlord to do a live stream on Tuesday, starting at 4 p.m., 7 Eastern, and answer your questions that come up. I'm going to say hello and read some questions. And before I get to those, I actually have a question from somebody in email that I want to answer tonight. And if I ever figure out how to take portions of a video and make another video, I'm going to do that with this. So I am 24 minutes into this on my 10-minute intro. Okay. So bear with me. This is going to be something that I take out and make a video out of. Howdy. Welcome back to Dion Talk. In this live stream, I am making this portion of the video for a video to record later to answer this question that came through an email. How do you determine or choose how much you make your deposits for your rental properties? And do you charge first, last, and security? How do you make the decision to do that? Thank you for sending the email. I appreciate the question. The thing to start with is I do not charge a last month's rent. And it's not because I think it's too much money for somebody to move into a rental, because first and last and deposit can add up really quick to $6,000 to $9,000. I want people that would be able to have that much money to move into my rentals. So that's not the barrier. The barrier is when people call it last month's rent. Tenants get it in their mind that I have a free month of rent as long as I move out. So you increase the odds of tenant turnover if that tenant thinks that last month is paid as long as I move. So I don't charge a last month's rent. I charge a security deposit and first month's rent. I want the security deposit and the rent to be different. The deposit is either $300 or $400 less or $300 or $400 more, depending on the rent of the unit. If it's a one bedroom that I'm renting out for $1,400, it's going to be more. If it's $2,200 and I'm renting out a 3-bedroom, it's going to be less. I want to make sure that the tenant doesn't feel that my deposit and my first or last month's rent are in any way ever confused with that last free month's rent if they move. Someday I'm going to figure out how to get this out of this video into its own video, but not today. Until next video, thanks for coming to my Dion Talk. And now we're going to get to the hellos. Howdy, Tom. Dividend Dave, howdy. How is it in Bellingham? On my cruise, I'm finding out it's warmer in Alaska than it is in Washington this week. It's supposed to be in the 80s here next week. Kyle, howdy. Greetings. Dion, this seems to be an interesting topic. Can't wait to hear. Thank you. Thank you. I hope it was interesting. Chris, howdy. Anyone else here just for the eyebrow raising stinger thing? Asking for a friend, which I had up queued earlier, but someday I will get better at my tech, or hire a 10-year-old to actually edit this stuff for me, but not today. Matt, the lumberjack landlord, so happy to be here. Let's make landlord magic. And in faith, I have hit the like button. Nice. If my content earns it, I would appreciate it if you hit the like button and let YouTube know that somebody likes my content, and maybe share it with some other people that can benefit from it. If I didn't earn it, hit the dislike button twice. Make sure I know you hated it. Michelle, howdy. Thought you'd be on your cruise. Nice. I messed up last week and talked about it. I probably should have waited till the... Howdy, Matt and everyone. Lumberjack, he is next week. Kelly, howdy. Tiffany, howdy. Dawn, howdy. Amafid. Hola. Bueno. Nathan, howdy. Laura. Howdy, Laura. Thank you for the email. I very much appreciate it. I won't share the details, but you sent me a really nice email talking about retiring early and the importance of enjoying life, that life is more about memories than money. And I agree. And sometimes that is the thing that helps somebody decide if it is time to retire early or not. REI trainer, howdy. Tank, howdy. With competitive market, is it bad to make offer, have an offer accepted, then pull out of deal before or after inspection due to seeing property numbers don't actually make sense? Other reasons. Thanks. So when you have an offer accepted, your inspection clause is starting then, and it goes until the end. So if you do a 5 or a 10-day inspection clause, you can pull out and you don't need to do the inspection. An inspection clause doesn't mean if you do an inspection and you don't like what you find from a professional inspection company, then you can back out. An inspection clause gives you 5 or 10 days to inspect the property. That could be looking at your computer screen, going to Google Earth, not liking what you're seeing across the street. Any reason whatsoever, you don't even actually have to give a reason. You are in your inspection period and you can back out without losing your earnest money. So yes, you can. I would hope that you're running the numbers well enough to make sure that they work when you make the offer, which means constantly, pretty much weekly, knowing area average rents and your rates, talking to your lender every week because they change all the time. And then knowing rates, rents, and price determine your yield before you make the offer. But yes, if you've made it and then you realize you made a mistake and you're in your inspection period, you don't have to spend the money on an inspection. You can back out and keep your earnest money. That is my experience that I've had everywhere that I've talked to anybody. There might be some weird state where there's some other way of looking at it, so know your local laws. But I've never heard of somebody losing earnest money if you back out during your inspection period. There is a sentence on most standard agreements. It's line 14. And it says something about if the agent or the agent's brokerage spent money, like staging or whatever, they can be made whole. If the buyer backs out and you get to keep their earnest money, so that's the seller would have to split some of that money with the buyer, with the listing agent. But I don't think it applies to anybody during a buy. It takes earnest money away from the seller to give it to the agent, not from the buyer if they don't have to lose it. Howdy, Bill, REI trainer. A coworker of mine who just lost his job, that sucks. He got severance. That sucks less. Is house hacking by renting his house and living out in his RV with his fiance. Now both remote workers. Very cool. Nice. I have friends who are still doing that. They moved to their RV, Airbnb'd their house, sold the house, took the equity, purchased 3 acres, live in the RV, Airbnbing the house, building a duplex and a tiny home and an ADU. Beautiful strategy. All done while house hacking in their RV. Because owner-occupied lending requires you live on the property. Does not require you live in a building on the property. It requires you live on the property. Levi, howdy. Being against retirement accounts, I'm curious if you can touch on your view of a Roth IRA conversion ladder. Fact money is to buy your art instead of being taxed already when. So Roth is the preferred retirement account to use because it's what is it, post-tax money. So yes, if you can use the conversion ladder to move it over, I would definitely do that. I would prefer to not be putting money into a retirement account to have enough to need to convert over to do that. The one thing that you can also use retirement accounts for that I've done in the past before I emptied it. In 2020, I emptied out my retirement accounts because yay, COVID. We could take out up to $100,000 without paying a penalty. And you had 3 years to pay it back if you wanted to, or 3 years. I just paid the taxes. It's like, pay the taxes, take the money, put it into a triplex. Now it's paying me. What cash flow, so much better. It's appreciated like twice what anything in the stock market would have done that I was invested in. So I'm very happy I did that. But I'm still contributing for the match. So there is some money in the account. And before 2020, I had money in my retirement accounts. Lenders will look at retirement accounts like a reserve. 50% of the funds that are in a retirement account, as long as it's seasoned, been in there more than 3 months, lenders will look at that as a reserve. So when you go to buy the next place, you have to save the down payment, have the closing costs, have money for immediate repairs, and demonstrate that you have reserves. You don't have to tap it or take it out. You just have to prove that it's there. That is less money to come up with to do the next deal. Not always recommended on the first or second when we're generally going to make our biggest mistakes. But if you have things like unused credit, home equity line that's not tapped, lines of credit that aren't tapped, and some reserves, you don't need a lot, your retirement account can count as a reserve to satisfy what the lender needs. Love the anti-retirement account video. Just had those lingering curiosities. Awesome. Which is what I really like. If you ever watch a video of mine, the coolest thing to me is come to one of the live streams and say, hey, I watched this video. What did this mean? Ask the question. It's cool. And I will answer questions on every video. If you ever leave a question in the comments, I answer all of them. But I generally see the first comment. So if I've responded to you and then you send another message, I might not see it because the way the YouTube thing works is it shows you first comments to let you know you have someone to reply to, but it doesn't show you the following ones. Mac, howdy. Is there an age of property you won't buy? Also, is there a layout inside a split multifamily that you avoid, or is it just numbers working? You are the man. Thank you. Thanks, Mac. So those are good questions, and they are things I consider. I don't care how old the property is. It can be from the 16th century. If I was on the West Coast, it's probably more likely. I want to know when things were updated. How old does the roof and how much life does it have left? Is knob and tube wiring been replaced? Is it aluminum? What is the age of the actual electricity in the building? What does the plumbing look like? Is there, does it have an HVAC system? Does it have some, furnace or things that we don't worry about in Washington much because it's not Siberia like where Matt lives, the lumberjack landlord. So we don't have to worry about those things. But so the age of the property doesn't matter as much as what's been updated. And we'll get an inspection that will tell me things about how the foundation is, those kind of things. And then there was a couple parts to your question. The layout to the inside that I To split multifamily that I avoid, I prefer, so it's kind of a way of avoiding it. I prefer side-by-side properties, so I don't have tenants above or below another, less noise complaints, less chance of a plumbing issue impacting both. So I like side-by-side. My preference above that is side-by-side with a garage between. My fourplex is townhome style, so they're next to each other, so there's no tenants above or below, and each one has a garage. I like 2 bedrooms or more with a garage, because more space equals more stuff, which means less likely to move. I do like properties that have their own fenced off yard. So a duplex that's a house that's divided from 2 different directions but doesn't have a fence, I would be less likely to pursue that as I would be a duplex that has each yard fenced off, because I like to allow pets. People with a pet are less likely to move because that's a relocation for the pet, even if the human moves with it. So I'm doing all of these strategies to try to limit tenant turnover. During a BiggerPockets boot camp live session, so I'm one of the teaching assistants, I said, let's look up a video. So we looked up a video because we do that in Zoom. So I'm able to share my screen. I need to figure out how to get Zoom to work with YouTube and do that here later, because I would like to do a thing where I go, let's look up a random property. And I go to my emails from my agent and I look at the properties they sent. My goal was open one, because I look at 100 that aren't worth pursuing to find 20 that I want to make an offer on. Well, I opened one. Math was good. Math is usually step one. Then I looked at it and it was a triplex. They didn't have garages each one, and one of the units was above the other. So that's not what I would normally want. It was like a 19% cash on cash return. It was in an area that was separate from all my other properties, about more than 10 miles. So it was checking off every box. It was by several different economic drivers. It wasn't too far from the capital where our labor and industries building is, DSHS building, like all these state things are there. I made an offer. Like in the live stream, I pick up my phone, I text my agent, and I was like, this is the offer, this is the amount, this is the earnest money, this won't be owner occupied. It didn't meet the criteria I was looking for on one aspect, but the other aspects were strong enough to make me want to pursue it. So sometimes I purchased a duplex and the math was under what I thought I would want for a yield. I thought I'll probably get 5-6%. I ended up getting like 11. So the binder strategy worked better than I thought it would at this place. But I was buying it with a lower yield. Like the math wasn't even as good as what I wanted. But insider trading in real estate is legal. And I was investing in a town, and here you go, insider trading, Lacey, Washington. It's growing. They were adding this new European style overpass where it's like 2 roundabouts, so it crosses the traffic to the opposite side. So it took 26 touch points in traffic lights down to 14, improving traffic and improve the area. There's a Cabela's by there. There's a Walmart and a Home Depot and a Costco. It's like a really growing area. But there was a mushroom farm called Ostrom's Mushrooms that lost a court case and was having to move. And they moved the portion of the plant that causes this smell that used to go out and blanket a 5-mile radius in the summer and just make it a very bad place to live. So rents were always, really low there. Ostrom's moved, at least the portion that makes the smell, right? I knew that was coming. I ran a truck driving school. The company said, hey, we want to train some people to help them find jobs. And I was like, oh, so you guys are having to move. You lost the case. Buy a duplex. I knew that within a year or two, that smell would be gone, and rents have, I want to say, about tripled. They were $1130 when I first purchased it, and I'm relisting it right now. Last weekend, one of those units for $2,000 had 27 people show interest. 8 people filled out applications. Probably could have got more money, but I didn't do a rehab. I replaced a few things like a sink, 2 faucets, ceiling fan, but I didn't paint. The last tenant was awesome. Took care of everything when he moved. So I'm getting a really good rent because I knew that change was coming. So when you go to buy a property, you don't have to check off all of your boxes. If one of them is missing, like I want washer dryer hookups, if I looked at one and it didn't have it, I would think, okay, what's the expense to add that? So there are things I look at and things I avoid, but that doesn't mean it's a deal breaker. Howdy, Keith. Alizette, howdy. It's great to have a drink with everyone again. How do you determine a neighborhood is class A, B, or C? Speaking of drinks, cheers. Would you believe me if I said that was water? A, B, C, or so we did a video. Brandon Turner has an article. If you Google class A of neighborhood A, B, C, or D. D is a war zone. So you can't safely go there, and the police go there in teams. I would avoid war zones. Class C is your residential, working class. They're usually next to like Panera Bread. Um, you're going to see more Target type stores, not so much your 7-Elevens and your Walmarts and those kind of things. So the type of store is a little bit better. Class B is usually single family, nicer homes or higher end apartments. And then Class A is gated community, McMansion, apartments that are 500-600 bucks a night. Your Class A is really high end. So it really is just a grade. There's no specific definition. I'm looking for C because the only time rents have gone down since 1914 when we started tracking the data was in Class A neighborhoods during 2009 because they could move to a B or a C to save money. Rents for Class C went up in 2009 because a lot of the people who lost their houses to foreclosures, the millions of people who did that, then became renters. They don't want to move to war zones. They're not going to afford Class A. So there was, in an economic downturn, C is more likely to have a solid rental base. So that's kind of the Cliff Notes version of how I would look at A, B, C, or D. If you're investing at a distance, it's really important to know. So have boots on the ground that you trust. Either you used to live there and know the neighborhoods, know where to avoid. If you're in Tacoma, you know anything that's on, adjacent to, or touches in any way McKinley Avenue, you don't buy it. Everything away from there is worth pursuing. You know the area. So if it's at a distance, you want a property manager or a handyman or a contractor in that area or an agent that you trust. Like you trust them so much, they're going to come to your funeral. That's someone that you can trust to tell you parts of town to avoid, to stay out of the D war zones. Keith, retirement date 9/29/22. And life goes on with rental properties. Nice. 16 paid for single family houses. Nice. Congratulations. 9/29/22. Let's have a race. Congratulations, Keith. Tony, howdy. Subi, howdy. Both are necessary. People in Congress invest in the stock market also. They do. And that's the whole insider trading thing that's going on with Congress, where stocks, it's not so legal. But if you know legislation is coming that's changing stuff, should you be allowed to buy stocks? In real estate, it's encouraged. We need more housing. We need people to take care of housing. So we encourage people to find out things like what's happening to an area and then invest there. Both are necessary. Whenever it comes to stocks, crypto, business, or real estate, what I always say is it's important that you invest in something that excites you. You're more likely to stick to a plan you're emotionally invested in. Stocks don't excite me. Business doesn't excite me. Crypto entertains me. Real estate excites me. Today, I went and looked at a 20 cabin resort to look at, is this the next purchase that I make that would be a nice pivot from what I've been doing? And am I financially in a position where it makes sense to be able to do that? And it was a great day. Like I was excited to look at each structure, to figure out what the business model is, how they've been running it, what I would do exactly the same, or if I would make any changes. There is no stock that does that for me. There's no business, because if you run a business, you're an entrepreneur. Like if you grow it to the point where you can sit back and someone else runs it, you finally got there, sure. But to get there, you need to be an entrepreneur. And I'm not. I'm an investor. I want to put money to work and have it work for me. An entrepreneur will say things like, I don't want a boss. Well, all of your customers with a Yelp account are now your boss. And they'll say things like, I don't want to work more than 40 hours a week. Well, an entrepreneur is going to work 80 hours a week. So all of the things that make a person a good entrepreneur are why I'm not an entrepreneur. But if stocks or real estate is something that excites you, whichever one excites you, don't invest on emotion. But the one that you're excited about, you're more likely to stick to. Levi, congrats, Keith. Larry, howdy. I plan to avoid LLCs unless partners like you when I buy small multifamilies. What's worst insurance combo of events that you fear which would drastically affect portfolio and cash flow? Want to be aware what to look out for. Over consolidation in one area in the beginning. When you only have 3 or 4 properties, if they were all in one area, I would be very nervous about economic drivers in that area going away. So cash flow could significantly decrease. So that's why I invested in my properties. The goal is more than 10 miles from the other properties so that I'm drawing tenants from different sources. Have good insurance in place. And as soon as I got to 3 properties, I probably should have got an umbrella policy, but I didn't get it till I had 4. So have a good umbrella policy. They're not very expensive. When I got it initially, it was like $550 a year. Now it's like $630 for $2 million in coverage. Um, 3 things for asset protection. The first is insurance. Have property insurance on the property, which is, I have up to $300,000 slip, fall, or injury, full replacement value of the building. So if they burn down, if I only had 1 or 2 properties, I would probably keep the insurance that covers loss of rent. But I have reserves to do that, so I haven't added that. Some insurance policies I've heard require that if you're not living there. I just, shop around, find a different insurance policy. Then I have the umbrella policy, which is, $2 million. If any suit goes above the 3,000 on the property. So all the properties are listed in that umbrella. Find out from your insurance company how many properties you can have in an umbrella policy. You might need to have more than one. The second thing is leverage. I have 7 properties with 16 rental units, but of those 7 properties, 6 have mortgages. So the bank is in first position for those 6 mortgages. Then the third thing, and I think this is the most important, even though I listed off as third, is be proactive. Do walkthroughs, check for safety concerns, listen to tenants when they make a statement or report an issue, have someone fix it quickly. Make sure the tenant understands the 3 words that require an immediate call, and everything else is handled through your handyman or through your portal if you're going to use something like Hemlane, which I am going to be using soon. Actually, I enrolled for it now. On that note, if you want to try out Hemlane, 2 things. I'm going to be listing a property on Hemlane, and I should probably talk about that tonight. It's a tenant turnover that they're out at the end of this month. So next month I'm going to do, whatever repairs are needed, and then I'm going to list that property. They've moved out of the area. It'll be my first property listing with Hemlane. I'm going to do review videos on it. Hemlane has also said, if you want to use Hemlane and you want to try it out, if you use my name, they'll give you a 10% discount on your first year. So if you just enter DION as the code, you put in Dion and you get a 10% off their product going forward. So that's in place now, but the review videos won't come out until I've listed a property, because I've used apartments.com. I put it on apartments.com. That's what I've done. I haven't done rent collection online. I haven't done reporting issues online. I've been really pen and paper, literally paper book kind of thing. But I'm going to be traveling more, because that retirement, which I'm on a race with now, apparently, you'll probably win. I want to be able to do it more online from anywhere in the world. And I think Hemlane is going to be the solution, because it's not property management, but they have a lot of the aspects of property management. They can coordinate with handymen. They can have a leasing agent go to your property. Depending, there's 3 different packages you can do. If you get the top tier package, leasing agents can go and sign the leases for you. So I can be in Thailand and have a tenant turnover. It's like I have a crystal ball and can see the future. That is so weird. So those are the things that I look at when I'm looking at the things to fear, is having insurance in place, having leverage on the property so that the banks are in first position, and then making sure that I actually fix things. Be proactive. Don't skimp out. Go actually test the banisters. Check all that kind of stuff to make sure everything's safety. Aspects are being every safety aspect being looked at. And then sleep like a baby. Doug, howdy. Looked at a duplex today, was a dump. Make ready would be ridiculous. Easy to walk away with the market changing. Nice, good call. Know what your limits are. Sometimes it's not just the math, it's how much work is it going to take to make that ready. What are your costs to make rent ready? What is your timeline to make rent ready? Like, all of that's a factor. And then there are some people that, Matt the lumberjack landlord would go, awesome, this place is terrible, it's perfect. I see opportunity. I would be like, I'm lazy, I'm working full time, I'm looking for a rent ready or already occupied. And like you, I'd probably pass, especially with the market doing what we're seeing now. Dividend Dave, why do you think people can't get their minds shifted out of the 40 for 40 for 40 mindset? So I have a debate coming with Matt and Mike this Thursday, and I don't want to take the thunder from that, but you'll hear some words in that video that are very similar to this. If you start training somebody very young to think a certain way, how do you think they're going to end up? If somebody's 30 and you want to change their mind, it's very hard. But if somebody's 13 and you just say, look, this is what adults do, by the time they're an adult, it's ingrained. That's why it's so hard. And it takes effort. People think Working a job is the goal. So we learn how to do a resume, we learn how to interview, we learn how to get the job, we learn how to job hunt so we can get the job. So the job is the goal. People forget the money from the job so you can put it to work so you don't need the job is the goal, isn't being taught, isn't being thought about. I think YouTube University is going to make it more widespread than it was at any point in the past. There were always a lot of people looking for it. And that's why you had timeshares made such money, because there were people looking for with hope to find something other than 40 for 40 for 40. And then they got ripped off because the scams were there. With YouTube University, the great thing is if I say something, or if Michael Zuber says something, or if Graham Stephan says something, there's a comment section. You can call us out. You can say, hey, prove your data, prove that thought. Like, it's not social media on Facebook where you're supposed to make a meme that makes people wonder what you meant and wonder if that was a joke or not. This is, here's how I reached financial freedom. This is the mindset that helped me do it. And then here's the data to back it up, right? That's something that's just never been here before. Stevie, howdy. I watch videos about getting deals and experience all the time, and my wife said she would be more interested about how to deal with healthcare after FI. Awesome stuff. 3 or 4 weeks ago, I did a video called How to Handle Healthcare After Retirement. Or that's probably not what I called it. It was recent. I think it's just literally look up retire early healthcare. And the first 20 minutes was me talking about how to handle healthcare and how to retire, and then have they be a part of the plan. And here's the 30 seconds Cliff Note version. It's an expense. It costs you to live wherever you're at. If you're house hacking, when we say reduce or eliminate your housing expense, the room you're in could also be rented. So it's an expense to live there, even if you're house hacking, right? You need food. That's an expense. You need travel. That's an expense. You need entertainment. That's an expense. You need healthcare. Right now, your employer is probably paying for the bulk of it, and you have 10 or 20% left. So you're going to be taking on, instead of $200 or $300 a month, you're going to be taking on $1,100 or $1,300 a month. It's an expense. Have an asset for every expense. If you have a duplex, I have one called the vehicle duplex, the healthcare duplex. They cover it with an asset and then never worry about it. Some people say, I don't want to retire because healthcare is an issue. So if you have an asset that covers the expense, you can retire. I think having to work to have the healthcare benefits is the bigger risk. What if you get laid off, fired, or your company changes policy and your healthcare goes away? Those are all possibilities. But if you have assets that cover your expenses, and when you retire, remember, it's multiples of your cost of living. So if your cost of living is $5,000 a month, you want 10 or 15,000 coming in to cover it. So if things cost more in the future and your rents increase to cover it, you're not going to run into problems. Dividend Dave. Bellingham was rainy, but it's sunny today, right? If you don't like the weather, wait 10 minutes. Exactly. Oliver, howdy. CDS calculator, you always put down 25%, but I'm actually putting down 3.5% down on a duplex. Why do you still put down 25% in the CDS calculator to get your yield? Great question. I'm not trying to find out what I'm going to make on my money. I'm trying to find out if I was looking at 5 properties as investments, which is the best one to pursue, because house hacking can throw it off. If you put down a 0% VA loan, like literally, and closing costs were wrapped up into it, so you have no money in, and then you make $1 a year, that's 1,000% increase, that infinite increase, right? Is $1 a year worth the headache, the risk of running a property? So yes, you can reduce your down payment by doing 3% conventional, 3.5% FHA, 0% VA, but it doesn't tell you if that's a good property to pursue or not. So I put in 25% down on the down payments, like I was looking at investment properties side by side, and then thinking, because I'm also running the calculation as if it's after the year that I've moved out and all the units are rented out, because I'm taking house hacking out of the equation. There's actually a video on this channel. It's really short. It's called House Hacking, Run the Numbers, or House Hacking Cash Flow. Sorry. But to do that, you take out the 2 things. You take out the low down payment because it's too easy to show a really good yield. And then you take out the reduce or eliminate your housing expense and look like all the units are rented and you did 25% down, because now you can look at 5 properties and see which one is the one that stands out with the best return. And it's not always the best return you go for. That's the one I usually start with. Then you look for those other. Is it the type of units that are going to help limit tenant turnover? Washer, dryer, number of bedrooms, garage, side by side, all the things that help a tenant want to stay there. That comes after math. So that's why I put the 25% back in. Angel, howdy. I need to cease spending, and my house hack is a really nice house with a beautiful garden, and I've been spending more than $500 a month restoring it to its greatness. Stupid mistake. Now I'm with a bigger home. All my friends want to visit every weekend. Been spending way too much entertaining. I when I Before I got into investing, one of the reasons I was often poor was I lived on a lake. My house that is now rented to a Section 8 tenant is on the lake. I had a private boat launch. I had a Sea-Doo, jet ski, sit down 3-person towed tubes. I always had friends over every single weekend. Do you know how much fuel I went through to entertain? I mean, I was having fun. I was out there too. But that's one of those expenses that it's fun to have people come over, but figure out a way to share the expenses. Ben, howdy. How do you find out what market rents are? I'm studying an area out of state, so don't know it personally. So it's actually studying the area average rents. You don't have to be there. That's the easier one to get. Knowing the good and bad areas to avoid is harder to do at a distance, and that's why I want boots on the ground that I trust. Do it like you were trying to rent a property there today, the same size of the one that you're trying to rent out. So if you're buying 2 bedrooms or 3 bedrooms, you're going to look at 2 bedrooms or 3 bedrooms on several different platforms, because a lot of areas are different. In some areas, it's Trulia. In some areas, it's Redfin, Zillow, apartments.com. So I want to look at as many of those as I can, including Craigslist and Facebook Marketplace, because sometimes it's not so much on the internet as it is in social media. What do rentals in that area go for today? So take a chart, just write down, these are the properties I looked at. This is the date. This is how much they were rented for. And then watch and see which ones stay on the market or get price reductions. And it's going to take you 60 to 90 days to learn a market, to get the yield. And that's not just the rents. That's each county, your rates can be different. Your loan maximums can be different. So figure out what lenders, talk to lenders that are in that area, that lend in that area, what their rates are. So rates, rents, price in that area. So you've got 60 to 90 days probably to learn all of those 3 for an area. And the longer you watch the rents, the more you'll get a feel for what seems normal in that area. It's not like you can pull up Rentometer, because that's usually very far off now. Someday they might come at me with an affiliate program, and I'm going to have to figure out what they do that's right, because what they do that right now is not working. They were using a year model where they looked at the last year's rents and they said, okay, here's what happened. So here's what we think the average is. Rents went up too fast in 2021. Then they fell like 40% below what was an area average in my area. They're still 30% below now. They shifted from a 1-year model to a quarter model. So every 3 months they were running their historical data, still off. That one that I just rented at $2,000 with 27 people interested and 8 people filling out applications is $300 more than Rentometer says it can be. So that's technically 15% low. They're 15% off. So that's how I do that, to learn the rents in an area. There is a video on my channel called Setting Rents in a Hot Market. It has more detail than what I just did. Dividend Dave. Warning on Roth conversions. All converted income is taxed as ordinary income. That is the reason why every time somebody brings up doing a self-controlled retirement account to buy properties turns passive income into earned income, which is taxed a lot higher and you don't get depreciation and you don't get a lot of other benefits. Thank you, Dave. That's a good warning. Chester, howdy. The other day, Chester, you were talking to me about my math on my whiteboard, and I appreciate, because you and Matt are just faster with math. There's 365 days in a year and a quarter of a day. That's why the math for me was like 87.66 or something instead of 87.60. So our math was a little bit off because I was using, there's still a quarter of a day left out there that's cycled into that leap year every 4 years. Eli, howdy. How do you feel about your tenants knowing you are the owner of property? A lot of my tenants watch my content. Not only am I the owner, I'm the guy who said, here's how I got my tenants to ask me to raise their rent. But I'm transparent about that. Many content creators recommend you just identify yourself as the manager of the property, which you could be caught in a lie on if the tenant has anybody who works in real estate that can say, hey, here's my search, that's the property owner. So I wouldn't lie. I do say that I have two partners that I check with on big decisions. It's not a lie. One of those partners is my kid's cat. And if the cat doesn't think the person should get new windows, then that person doesn't get new windows. But I'm not saying something like I'm the property manager, the property's in an LLC, so I've distanced my name from it. I'm saying I'm going to check with other people so that I don't have to be the bad guy and say no all the time. If you don't have a backbone and you're not going to be able to force somebody to say, hey, here's the late fees. The two things. First, I would have suggested get a property manager. Put a business in place that's going to take your weakness out. Now I'm going to say, look at a program like Hemlane. Hemlane has, I can program, here's the rent amount, here's the due date. I do not allow partial payments, and automatically it starts charging late fees if they're not, taking me out of the equation for something like that. I identify myself as the owner, but I do say I do check with two people on big decisions, or not people, two partners. I call them two partners, because one, I'm going to usually reach out to somebody that I know, like Michael Zuber or Matt the Lumberjack Landlord, or somebody who's been investing longer, or has more rentals, and say, if a tenant asks you to pave the driveway, what would you do? Maybe they'll think of something I didn't know, and then I'll answer the tenant. But if you really want to hide, you can go through an LLC to remove your name, or you can use property management, and they never need to know. Never really had a problem with it. And most of it's because I'm pretty transparent. I've actually said, hey, look, I run a YouTube channel. There was a tenant that I had not too long ago. He was like, I'm thinking of buying a house. I'm like, great. Here's how I would run the numbers. Here's contact for an agent. Here's contact for a lender. Like everything, because I have no problem with the tenant moving. I kind of like it when they do, because I use the binder strategy and get good rents. But if I have a tenant turnover, I'll actually get great rents. What I don't want is to buy a property, force a tenant out, have to do a rehab when I've just bought the property, screen and find and place a tenant. Like all that's just too much work to buy a property. But if I have a tenant that's been there for a couple of years, or a year or 10 years or whatever, and they want to move out, that's a turnover I don't mind, because I know I'm going to get area average rents or better. Chester, they're called diverging diamonds, I think, where traffic crosses into the opposing lanes. Yeah. What strength of someone's water could make someone flinch? It's hard water. North Colorado Dawn, howdy. This is the calmest I have ever seen you when you're talking about LLCs, because that was somebody who said, and is familiar with the content, that said, look, I kind of like the idea of no LLCs, but then how do you do this? Not the, you have to have an LLC or everything's at risk, and then some new investor goes, yep, I'm not going to start because I don't have an LLC. Then my blood starts to raise. So, top secret bear, howdy. Ryan, howdy. Leaving my ADU in traffic, sitting on traffic in beautiful Tacoma, and see and live with Dion. Get through this traffic. Traffic around here is not too bad. It's great, as long as you're never in a hurry to get anywhere. It's not as bad as Florida. I think there were more people traffic problems in Washington. In Florida, it's just somebody decided 2 minutes and 45 seconds for a traffic light is totally normal. Rich, greetings. Joey, howdy. What's the highest cash-on-cash return that you've seen in order for a deal to be a great deal? My highest cash-on-cash return first year was 17%. It's my best deal. For me, a great deal in my area was 10%. If I can get that, that's a great deal, because most deals, like 80%, lose money in my area. So if you're moving to Washington, you're like, oh, I'm going to go up there and do what Dion did and buy some duplexes. You're going to look at 180 of them would lose money all day long, even with maximum current area average rents, even higher than that. They just don't make sense. 20% might make sense at the 3 to 6%. And then some would get you 7 to 8%. So that starts to be a great deal. And then 10%, I'm like, I'm making this offer. I'll fight for it. I'll figure out what matters to the seller. Those are the ones I pursue. Depends on your area. Matt, the lumberjack landlord, lives where it's a frozen tundra, like 10 months out of the year, it seems. And he can get 20-25% returns. And so those are the ones he goes after. So it's really a local area dependent as to what to go after. Okay, Chester. That makes sense. Thanks. Rich, for an ex-cop, you're pretty smart. Maybe that's why I'm an ex-cop. But that would mean Millennial Mike, who's very smart too, is still a cop. Joshua, howdy. Can I do a conventional loan for a property and add the cost of adding a bathroom to the loan? Is that something lenders do? So that is a good question. There are 203K loans where you need to do a rehab, where they do loan you money for the repairs. I don't know that a conventional loan would do it. It depends on the price, the equity that you're going to get, what it appraises at. Sometimes if it appraises enough and they'll lend you up to 80%, but your loan is at 70 or 65%. Lenders are very different. Large banks, probably harder to get them to do it, but a local credit union or somebody like Guild Mortgage or Fairway Mortgage is probably more likely to be flexible on that. So yes, if you find a lender willing to play ball and the deal has the equity for the loan to do that. So I guess yes with caveats. Rich, Chester needs his own show. Smart guy. I agree. I endorse that. That might be something I might entertain as a YouTube channel. Nice. Kelly, the kid's cat earned the like button. The video. Nice. Thanks. The cat bit me though. There's a video where I held the cat for the outro and I was like, oh, look, it's a cat. And then it was just, I didn't throw the cat on camera. Richard, howdy. How much cash flow would you look for on a rental? Interesting question. I don't know that I've ever looked at the cash flow. I do kind of look at a minimal, like if the property is super cheap in my area, that's not been a problem. Like the cheapest property I think I bought was $290,000. Most have been much more than that. So I'm looking at yield. Is what an accountant would call it. What I look for in the real estate world is cash on cash return on investment. If I invest $10,000 on a property, my goal is to get a 10% or better return, right? So that would be $1,000 a year, which would mean that I would need about, $80 or $88 or something cash flow per month. That's kind of small to take the risk, right? So I have never invested just $10,000 into a property to buy it. I've usually invested, the first one was 20 and I was house hacking. Since then, they've been 40 to 80 and I've had one that was more, two that were more. Yeah, two that were more, but that was after the income snowball kicked in. I'm looking for cash on cash return. So what I suggest doing is learn your area average cash on cash return. Most deals are going to probably lose money, but some deals are good. And what do those good deals get? That's your average. Then you look for great deals that would try to get better than that. I'm okay with getting a good deal if it's a base hit and it gets you into the property, because you're going to learn more in your first purchase probably than the cash flow is going to benefit you. That what you learn is going to be the bigger benefit. I would not pursue anything that loses money. So if you invest $50,000 buying a duplex, then my goal would be to make $5,000 a year in profit. So take out principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. Take out repairs, maintenance, and vacancy. I set aside 15% for that. So 5% for vacancy, 10% for repairs and maintenance. So 15% is set aside. After that, what's left with the rents, I want to make at least $5,000 a year. That's a 10% return on the money. So it's not so much how much per unit. I hear people on BiggerPockets talk about $100, $200 a door, and that sounds great if you're doing the Burr method where you pulled out the capital to recycle to scale faster. I've never done that. I've never done a cash out refinance, taken out a home equity line of credit, or sold a property to recycle the capital. I save a down payment, buy a property. I increase cash flow. There's actually a video on my channel. It's got a picture of the Joker, and it says, why so much cash flow? Because over a couple of years, rents go up. We refinance to better rates sometimes. I add a wall, turn a den into a bedroom. So I've increased rents to where I'm averaging between $800 and $1,000 per door. But That's not what I shot for in the beginning. I wasn't even looking at that. I only know that because I know how many doors I have and I know what my cash flow is. And I'm really transparent on this channel. I have 16 rental units. That's 7 properties. So single family house, 4 duplexes, triplex, fourplex. So I have 7 properties. Cash flow is a little over $14,000 a month. So it's not quite $1,000 a door, but it's pretty close. And I'm house hacking 1 unit. So I share my exact, this is the numbers. It wasn't that much in the beginning. When I had 7 units, my cash flow was $2,700 a month. So as I scaled in units, and I've had properties longer, because they're absolutely right when people say time in the market beats timing the market. So time in the market means rents have gone up, especially in 2021. I did the binder strategy last year and got all of my tenants, all 16 units, because I also rent out a room in mine because I'm that cheap. And I travel a lot, so I want someone there all the time. And when you live with people, you get shrapnel food because I don't cook. And every now, because I've raised 3 super picky kids, I'm never cooking again in my life. But every now and then there's a meal ready. It's like, that's a side benefit to house hacking. Over there, Emperor lost his groove. What was I talking about? Oh, how much cash flow do I look for? I look for yield. That to wrap that up. That was a good question, though, Richard. Chester, have there been any properties which you may consider selling to use as a down payment for greater cash flowing properties? I have 1 single family house that's paid off, and I have thought of selling it. Michael Zuber from One Rental at a Time and Matt the Lumberjack Landlord for 6 months tried to talk me into refinancing and pulling out the equity to be ready to buy a deal going forward. But that's because they have several paid off properties and much larger portfolios. I mean, hundreds of units. I have 16. And that peace, that mental calm that comes from, I have a paid off property. It's rented to Section 8 tenants at $2,200 a month. Like I set aside, it's 200 because it's rural. I set aside $200 a month for taxes and insurance and $200 a month for repair. So $1,800 in profit on that property that I don't have to think about. And that tenant's in place and loves living there. She's got 4 kids. 1 has special needs. She lives on a lake, has private access. Like, this is a perfect situation for everybody. So I kind of don't want to sell. And I'm this petty. So this is the second overshare for tonight. I'll overshare. I kept that house during a divorce. So there's this tiny, spiteful little part of my heart that goes, that's still mine. So I haven't sold it yet. But I have thought if I was ever going to sell one, that's the one I would, that's my last single family, my only single family, everything else is small multifamily. I would sell it and redeploy the funds. But the first question before you ever cash out, refinance, home equity line of credit, or sell is always the same. The first question is, do I have a place to deploy these funds that will get me a return that justifies the extra debt on an asset or the loss of the first asset? So far, hasn't come up. Too much of an overshare? And then where was I? Kevin, howdy. Look up a Fannie Mae home-style renovation loan. There you go. It's conventional mortgage that you can wrap in construction costs. It's like 203K loan, but conventional. Thank you. Good answer to the question. Daniel, howdy. Another great live podcast. Thank you. Daniel, if you're still here, looking forward to your retirement in, what are we now, 59 days, 58 days? Daniel works at the company that I run, and in 2018 started investing. So coming up on 4 years, and made work optional. Then is retiring. So congratulations, Daniel. That's beautiful. We're having a retirement party this Thursday for my brother who retired 8 years ago, because that's how I roll. We should probably have a retirement party for you too. So, hey Siri, 8 years, remind me to throw a retirement party for Daniel Pitchler.
Okay, your reminder is set for the 21st of June, 2030.
Awesome. Angel, Dion, how did you get over the emotion of raising rents to market on great tenants that treat the property better than you gave it to them. Here's how I got over that. I didn't raise the rents. We had a conversation where we both lost. Their rent went up at their request. I did not kick them out, renovate the property, and get area average rents and better than area average rents. The one I mentioned earlier, Angel, they're moving. That's the guy who purchased a house and is moving out. So their rent did go up, but the new tenants that are moving in that left it great are the ones paying the now $2,000 rent. But the previous one, we have a conversation. Here's what area average rents are. Here's what you're paying. Here's what I paid, what my expenses are going to be based on for insurance and property taxes. What do you think is going to be fair? That's how I justify it. I sleep like a baby. I've had the conversation with tenants. The tenants thank me when they go, can we raise the rent $430? Because area average rent increase to them would have been six something, right? So they're significantly still below because I went to 2,000 and had demand. So I could have even went higher probably and had some demand, but not as much. That's how I justify it. Great tenants don't appreciate the rent not going up. You're setting them up for failure. They can't find another place. They can't buy a house because their rent is less than what a mortgage would be. You're not making enough money to do upgrades or repairs when they're needed. Like if you're not running a successful business, you're kind of making it rough on your tenants. There's a lot of the properties that I've acquired. I only have 7, but about half were from landlords who stopped taking care of it because they didn't want to raise the rents on good tenants. So nothing had been upgraded. Everything was falling apart. Little tiny things like screen door that had just fall off, screens gone on windows. They don't have $20 to go put a screen in because they weren't running their business right. I actually fix things. I listen to I ask the tenants, is there something you would like to fix here? And then I do it. And since it's a conversation, I would have a big problem with a lot of the people who just go, I just gave my tenant a $50 increase. I'll do a $310 increase and feel better than if I just told the tenant, you're getting a $50 rent increase. You're just a jerk. You just said, yep, I'm going to pay. You have to pay more to live here now. But if you go and you show them and you say, let's have a conversation, and you include the tenant in that conversation, and they ask for a big increase like that, 310 has kind of been the average. We both leave the conversation with, cool, I'm making more rents. I'm profiting, even though property taxes and insurance went up, cost of labor for handymen and contractors went up, cost of materials to fix anything went up. I'm making enough money to keep the reserves to take care of this property going forward. I'm going to be able to put the roof on it when it needs it. And the tenant is sitting there thinking, I don't have to move. I'm not paying as much as area average rents. And they let me be in that conversation. For me, works great. So hopefully you can look at it that way. Because what is a compromise? A compromise is when both sides lose something. I didn't get area average rents. They didn't get their rent to stay the same. We both lost something. That's how I got over the emotion. Richard, thank you. Chester, I'd say that was respectable small victories, like keeping the house still count as victories. Don't forget to hit that like button. Thank you, Chesla. Appreciate that. How is your rehab going, Chesla? You have cabinets in now. You have granite countertops coming in that Lumberjack landlord helped you pick out. Let me know how that's going. Daniel, now that's funny. See, got a reminder set. Rich, okay, Dion, my overshare. I agree with you on owning free and clear. I just pulled 100 out of my free and clear, getting ready to deploy. So excited. Thanks to you, Lumberjack and Mike. Awesome. Hopefully you deploy it in a great way. Let me know how that goes. That's awesome. That is an option, and they're both smarter and more successful than me. So it was probably great advice that I didn't take. Keith, do you use lock boxes on your vacancies? All my exterior doors have coded locks. I use Schlag coded locks. I will put a link in the comments below to Amazon where you can get them. And that way I can go and change the codes whenever there's a vacancy. And I have a code that's mine that's in the locks all the time. I can put in a code for contractors, and there's the code where you can blank out all the codes that are in there and then start over. So I don't use lock boxes, but I use Schlag coded locks. Lumberjack Landlord has a video on his channel that you should check out on the locks that he uses. I think his cost actually a little bit less than mine, so I might check his out. I forget what you called your video though, Matt. So if you want to put, if you're still here, you're probably asleep because you're in Siberia. I will make you a moderator so you can put links here. You are a moderator. So Matt, if you wanted to copy and paste the link to your video on the locks that you use, that would be great. Don't leave now. Finish my live stream. Then go check out the Lumberjacks channel. Brown Sugar Baby. Howdy. Thanks, Keith. That was a good question. What do you think of mobile homes? Recently moved to Texas and noticed it's a common form of housing and are less than 200,000. What are the pros and cons? My brother has 10 paid off rental properties, 3 are stick built, the rest are mobiles, and it's worked out great for him. 5-10 years ago, I would have said you're not investing for appreciation, you're investing for cash flow because refinancing mobiles is hard. They don't appreciate as much. It's a load of crap now. There are mobile homes next to my properties where the house is worth 400 and the mobile home is selling for 385. That's pretty much as appreciation as the house has seen. The really cool thing is if you primarily invest in mobile homes, they are cookie cutter. The heating system, the electric system, the flooring, everything that you need to repair anything that comes up is the same. I think they're a great strategy. I would want like my brother has mobile homes on acreage. He doesn't have mobile homes in a mobile home park because some of them you can only be a certain age and your park fees can go up and those kind of things. So if you're looking at mobile homes on acreage where you're buying basically a house that's a mobile home, I'm on board. Absolutely. Check for rents and call your housing authority and say, how much do you pay for rents in this area? And is there a difference for a mobile home versus stick built? Each housing authority could be like a public housing authority, or it could be a nonprofit that runs your area, and they do have different ways of looking at it. So run that in your numbers when you're looking at your yield to figure out what works in your area. Ryan, howdy. Chester, be careful. I believe utilities are their separate hookups to the house on the mobile homes. Well, if you're in a mobile home park, if you have a mobile home on your property and you strap it down, it's really no different than a house. Like my brother has one property, it's a mobile home with a mobile home ADU. They just put another trailer there and called it an ADU, conforming to county regulations. And both of those have their own meter, their own power, their own water. They're both on one septic. So do your due diligence and see what's going to work in your area. Aaron, howdy. Thanks for the great content from Aaron and Michelle and Corpus Christi. Thank you. And thanks for the email question. Appreciate it. Tank. One more question. Hopefully you have more. That's the only way this live stream goes on is if you guys come up with the good questions, because there are things I want to talk about in real estate that I don't know you want to know until you ask the question. What are some basic repairs you make when buying a property or current tenants leave, like replace carpet, update kitchen, finish basement? Awesome. So when I buy a property and there are tenants in it, what I normally do before I use the binder strategy, I want to wait 2 months to use the binder strategy. In those 2 months, I'm going to put in my coated locks, and I'm going to replace exterior porch lights front and back with motion sensor LED lights because they're brighter, they use less power, they look better. And I ask the tenants, and this is how I phrase the question. If you owned this property tomorrow, just poof, you're the new owner. What would you fix? The first time I did it, my real estate agent, who is now retired, he's the one with 30 paid off or 30 rental properties. Don't know if they're paid off. They probably are. He said, don't ever ask them that. They might ask for something big. I've never had a tenant ask for something big like, oh, we'd like another bedroom. They've asked for things like that ceiling fan remote doesn't work, or the screen door on the front has been gone for 2 years. Can we get another one? So little tiny $100 or $200 expenses, fix the things that I do. The tenants think I'm going to take care of the place. So the binder strategy goes better when I have that conversation. If a tenant moves out, if there's carpet anywhere, it's out. I'll put in LVP flooring. I purchased one place that had a hoarder in it, and the hoarder was moving, so that one was vacant. Underneath everything was hardwood floors, so I just had them resurfaced, left them there. I have not yet done cabinet replacement, refinishing. I've painted cabinets. I haven't done countertops. Like, I buy places that are rent ready or already occupied, so I could do that. I've helped friends do that. My friend Chandler, that's going through her tenant flip right now, is doing a full rehab. She did cabinets, flooring, she put in LVP, paint, light fixtures, all new electric around. So depending on the property, I have one where when a tenant moved out, the electric was okay looking. Nothing was really bad. So I replaced the plates, the covers, like the light switch cover and the plug-in cover. I didn't replace the interior electric. It was like $20, but the plates on there, it's super cheap. If you have one where they're really old, they're yellow, they're faded, they've been painted over, then I'll replace electricity too. If a tenant moves out, I generally really look at the property to see, is there a bedroom here that wasn't built before? I have one property that the mortgage on it is $1,300 because when I bought it, it was rented out basically like 2 bedrooms each side, and it wasn't really even that. The rents on it now are more than 2,000 each side because they were actually 3-bedroom units that hadn't been built. There were 2 bedrooms and then this weird, really like 10-foot wide hallway that had a closet in it to a sliding glass door. It's just weird looking. One wall, one door, powered light switch, baseboard heat, which is what we use in Washington, 2 forms in and out. So that's now a 3-bedroom. Each side's rented out. I've like doubled the rents there. It's in that video where I talk about why so much cash flow. That's what I do during a tenant flip, is what can I value add to this property that wouldn't take a lot of money, but would add to the rents. That's what I do for that. I pull out all carpet unless it's on stairs. If there are stairs, I like to have carpet because there's less chance of slip fall. So I'll put carpet on stairs, but everything else I put in LVP. Kitchen, bathroom, bedrooms, doesn't matter. If people want to put down throw rugs, great. But LVP goes in every room. I live in Washington State. Carpet is disgusting. People shouldn't have carpet in their places. And you're right, Chester. Matt added 2 videos on the locks to use. There's a link. Cool. And Brown Sugar says, thanks, Chester. Chesla, rehab is $10,000 over budget. That sounds awesome. And 2 weeks behind schedule, but no crazy surprises. So it's going really well. I didn't budget in all the small costs like hardware and drywall repair. Nice. And I don't know if it's 10,000 over budget or if you learned what the budget is in this rehab or this tenant flip. Thank you. Travis, howdy. Put my first offer in a few days ago. Congratulations. That's a big hurdle to get over in the beginning. Didn't get even with 5K over asking offer. I'm not giving up, but most deals I run are under 3% cash on cash. I won't give up. Love the content. Thank you. I average, even with 10 years of experience and recognizing a good deal and knowing how to make deals look better by, if it maybe it's over asking, maybe it's higher earnest money, maybe in the last couple of years it was speed, getting that offer in fast. I make over 20 offers before I usually even get one under contract or even negotiated, like a come back with a, why don't you make this offer? I think we're going to see more of that going forward though. And the metric to watch, Travis, is days on market. Watch for properties that other people aren't scooping up and then start to look at under asking price offers. There's a reason why other people are passing on it. That might be an opportunity for you. But watching days on market is going to be how you identify those properties. Brown Sugar, thank you. Greg, howdy. How do you suggest keeping your personal and business expenses separate in a house hack? Renting a room and bath, sharing remainder, how about depreciation? So first, the expenses from personal and business, I don't bother keeping separate. It's one of the reasons why I don't have an LLC. You don't have to worry about separation of funds. What you're looking for is you have your income and you're going to have things you can write off. So if you live in a house, you can write off an office space if you manage your properties, right? Or manage your property management from your house. Talk to your CPA about how much space is allowed to be used as a home office. Depreciation is very unique to each situation. So I've house hacked a duplex, which meant 50% of the depreciation schedule can happen while I was living there. Now I'm out, it's 100%. Then I'm in a fourplex now, so 25% is not counted in the depreciation schedule. And these are all depreciation stuff is something I realized when I bought my first rental that we should have a tax professional. It doesn't have to be your CPA, but a tax pro, because there are multiple types of depreciation: bonus, scheduled, was it amortized? Like when you buy a large product that doesn't add value to it, but it's maintenance, like a refrigerator or something. Does that go in the depreciation of the next 27.5 years, or is it 7 years? Because there's all these things we don't need to know as investors. That tax pro, you on my spreadsheet, I've got a column saying, here's where I spent the money, here's how I spent the money, or here's the date I spent the money, where I spent the money, how I spent it. So if it was credit card, check, cash, here's the amount, here's the tax amount, because that's a different type of write-off than the amount that you paid. The taxes is one for one, while the other one is a write-off against income. Then there's all these things you don't even need to know. And then there's a note section so first there's what property it was assigned to, so they know which property that write-off goes to. And then over on the side is the notes. So when I put in things like replaced dishwasher or had roof repaired, replaced, the CPA, the tax person, knows what type of depreciation that's going to fall under. And if I didn't have a YouTube channel, I wouldn't even know the definitions of what I've just talked about. I would just know, I give the information to them. They do everything legally correct. I pay them. Now it's like $1,100 a year for them to do the tax prep on 16 rental units with a W-2, running a nonprofit, like all these weird things. I've got several different side hustles. And it is worth every penny. I would keep a spreadsheet on expenses. If you buy a television for your bedroom, that's not a write-off. If you buy a television for an Airbnb, that's a write-off. Like, to put it all in the notes so that your tax pro knows what to do with it. Rich. Portfolio lenders in your area will help refinance mobiles. Twice moved. Nice. So check with your lender in your area to see what their current things are. There was a time when you pretty much couldn't get financing on a mobile in Washington if it was over like 10 years old. And now I see financing happening on mobiles that are from the 70s. Like, it just depends on the time, lender fear, and what current policy is. Dawn, howdy. Thank you for the mobile home question. Eyeing an old one on 7 acres. If I can only get $800 rent, it's listed at 89. What's a good seller finance deal I can present to the seller? Steal from the lumberjack landlord's process of finding out what matters to the seller. Are they looking for monthly payments, or are they looking for cash up front? If you're looking for seller financing, the benefits are usually no large capital gains hit, but you're usually, for seller financing, talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's hard to get lenders to do loans for under 100,000 sometimes. So with seller financing, it might be, what down payment do they want? Because they might want to just take a trip. They might want to not deal with the headache anymore. I did a video with a gentleman who bought a property for $160 because that's what he had in his pocket when they met in the parking lot talking, and they got food. Locked the deal up for $20,000 and then wholesaled it for, I forget what it was, like $60,000 or something. So finding out from the seller in that moment what matters to them when you make the deal is more important than what you bring to the table with what you think you can do until you know what they want. Especially if it's on 7 acres and it has a house, that sounds like an ADU option too, especially if it's a mobile, putting another mobile on there. A lot of different options there. So the benefits to the seller is avoiding capital gains, getting consistent payments. I would say I would rather pay interest to you than the bank. So if we are going to amortize this, we can do an interest rate like 4% or 2% or something where they're going to actually make more than their price. But sometimes price is what matters to them more than an interest rate. And then letting them know that you're going to register this legally with a real estate professional and have it recorded with the county so that they then own a note. So if they want to keep the note, keep getting the payments, great. But if they want to sell the note to get payments immediately, or the money more immediately, then there is a secondary note market where they can do that. Kind of educating them on all the different options. Julie, howdy. Schedule? What's a schedule? My guys are working hard as can be. 3 renovations right now. Nice. Cash flow. Johnny, howdy. What's up? Real estate freaks. Murph Dog, howdy. What types of repairs on your current home when moving out? We hopefully will find a deal here in Florida soon. Any tips on things to repair or protect when diving into investing the first time? So what types of repairs on your current home when moving out? If I was moving out of a house, your home, and you want to sell it, I would make sure small things are done that can trip up an FHA or VA buyer. Things like a window that doesn't work right, or the $20 straps that hold your water heater in place. Those can create delays. I wouldn't make too many repairs when there's this much demand, other than the ones that can trip up a buyer like FHA or conventional. And I definitely would try to get as many eyes on the property as possible. So I would list with an agent that has access to, put you on the MLS. Don't try to sell or do it yourself. I wouldn't do that. I mean, that's like saying, would you go to a doctor who's only had one patient? Would you want to work with a real estate agent who's only ever done one deal and you're their only customer? Hire a pro so that you can get the best exposure, get the pictures done right. That's what I would think of more so than what repairs to do. Any tips on things to repair or protect when diving into investing the first time? Make sure your insurance is in place. Actually call to verify, call to place to make sure that your insurance, your binder's been sent to your mortgage company and your mortgage company's taking care of that. Insurance in place is the biggest problem. If something were to happen before it's actually in place because somebody delayed a payment, could cause problems. I would say have reserves is very important because things are going to pop up that you weren't counting on. Lenders will usually require at least 3 months of your principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, but whatever you can do to have more reserves available than that, the better. Tips on things to repair or protect when diving into investing the first time. You want to avoid the difference between analysis paralysis and taking action. Learn your market, learn what you're investing in, but don't study it so much that you never actually do anything. There's a really fine line between I have to know everything and I have to know enough. I know some people who bought properties in another state, then tried to do a reverse 1031 and said, I'll figure it out in the middle of it. She ended up doing great, taking action, but she knew things like how to get the area average rent, how to get boots on the ground, how to run the yield numbers on the property she was buying. So once you know the basics and you've studied your market to know what you're investing in, there is, I think it's one of the oldest, like first 3 videos on my channel called The 6 Steps to Getting Started in Real Estate. I would watch that because those 6 steps we do when we're starting, and I still do it now. A little over 10 years of investing, I'm still doing those steps in that order. The real Johnny B. Howdy. When the Liberals won the election in Canada like 6 years ago, the oil industry declined steadily since. I'm no longer able to rent out for enough to cover my cost ideas. So I don't understand. I don't know the politics in Canada, and I ignore the politics in the United States. But you're no longer able to rent out to cover your cost. Are you able to rent out by the room to increase that? Are you able to look at Airbnb versus long-term? Are you looking at traveling nurses, if that's a thing in Canada? Don't know. What would happen if you sold and redeployed the money somewhere else for a better return? An option might be checking out a channel called A Canadian Investing in the United States. He primarily invests in the United States while living in Canada, but it might be some content that would give you, he might be able to answer questions on that too. I'm not familiar with Canada, other than I know another thing that's probably tripping you up is if you bought those and then there was a decline in rents, you have 5-year and then adjustable rates in Canada, and rates are going up. So there's probably a couple reasons why you're running into cash flow problems. I would look at alternate ways of increasing revenue on the properties themselves. The main reason I don't own single family houses, like multiple of them here in Washington State, is they wouldn't cash flow. They would not make money with any kind of leverage at all. And they would be a terrible yield even if you bought all cash. So maybe there's a different type of asset there, a house with an ADU or 2 units on one property. That's why I invest in small multifamily here in Washington. Something we always fear is political changes impacting markets and not having an exit strategy. So, Chester, have you done a cost segregation study to determine how much bonus depreciation you could get? Nope, because I'm not a real estate professional, so it wouldn't benefit me at all. I have not done one of those. Both Matt and Mike have done that. Matt did it because his spouse, is a real estate professional. And I think now that by the time I did a study, I would no longer have a W-2 because I have to retire before Daniel does. Galen, howdy. Travis, would you ever consider a fourplex that has tenants above and the bottom level? Yes, I would. Like the idea of less noise complaints with side-by-side units, but cash flow good as a 1-1 unit. So I would. I looked at a triplex that was over-under units, but everything else was strong enough to where I made my offer. I ended up not getting the property. It was obviously such a great deal that I was running the numbers at my offer with like a 19% return, and then somebody went a couple $100,000 above mine. This was like a year ago when that kind of stuff was more common. So I would look at something that was side by side. I would look at something that's over under. If the other things I want were stronger, I would look at something more rural. Like I bought a duplex in a tiny little town. Like it's so small, I don't know that it's even considered a town. Probably doesn't have a town council or a city hall or anything like this that small. But it's a side-by-side duplex with garages in the middle, so it checks off those boxes. It's next to a couple of companies and a military base, and it's rural. So the military base has one side where Tacoma, Lakewood, all of these cities are. So people in the military that move to this area that want to live in the city will stay on this side of the base, but there's a lot of people in the military that are from more rural areas. They prefer the side of the base that doesn't have the cities around it. So I was confident buying. This place doesn't have a population at all. It's probably less than 400. Dan, you know what's the population of that town. It doesn't have to check off all the boxes. It has to check off enough of the boxes for the deal to be a good deal or a great deal. Galen, have you made Arizona your second home yet? I remember months ago you were looking for a house hack in Arizona. I was looking at Arizona because we were going to add a campus there for the truck driving school that I run. And we couldn't find a location for the school. I found several small multifamily deals I would have bought. I mean, there was like 50 that I wish I would have bought because I would have been in that area. Cheaper cost than Washington, higher rent than Washington. So better deals. And so many people in Arizona were saying, oh, I can't buy here. Everything's so much because it was so much more than it was the year before. But it still wasn't as expensive as we are, and it still had higher rent. So there were tons of deals I should have pursued. But I was doing it based on where our company was going to be getting a campus. We ended up not putting it in Arizona. We put one in Twin Falls, Idaho. So I looked at Twin Falls last year when we put the campus in and thought, oh, if I buy a small multifamily here, I house hack Washington and Twin Falls, I can run the campuses. And then the worst winter in a decade hit Twin Falls and hit Idaho. And the inventory for Boise went up 55% because everybody realized a lot of people moved to Idaho because of politics. They didn't want to be in blue states. They wanted to move there. And then the winter hit. So now they're moving to other states like Arizona and Florida, Texas. So I am glad I didn't end up buying there. And I don't know that I will. So right now I'm still hunting in Washington. And since I'm probably retiring from the truck driving school before Dan does, I don't think I'll be investing where we're going to put campuses. Murph Dog. No, definitely not sell. Rent. Jake, howdy. Do you have a process for clearing cigarette smell and nicotine-stained walls from inherited tenants that smoked inside for many years? I do. And I actually have it in my notes. This is what I do. I remove the carpet, curtains, windows, and screens and blinds. You want to remove anything from the areas where air passes through. So get rid of the screens and blinds. I wash the walls with a mixture of vinegar and water. So I think it's white vinegar, but it's vinegar and water mixture to leach out the smell. I have all the vents cleaned by a professional. I sacrifice a goat. I use Kills paint that's oil-based, not water-based. You want oil-based to lock in the smell. So that's rip out the carpet He'll paint the floor with oils paint anywhere on the walls where there was nicotine smell. Do you want to lock in that smell? Then I do regular paint. I do new LVB flooring in every area. I do blinds and window screens, so new screens. I haven't found a good way to wash screens enough to get the cigarette smell out. Even those mobile scrubber things, you could just get new screens. I rent an ozone machine and I leave it in for a few days. Then I check a couple days later to see if I need to leave the ozone machine there again for a couple more days. So that's my process whenever there's cigarette smell in a building. Rich, thank you. Jason, yes, you've heard about the goat before. Okay, we have been here an hour and 45 minutes. My goal is to go as long as the questions do. So I'm going to give it another minute to see if you guys have any more questions tonight. There's a lot of our sponsor left tonight. It's just water. Howdy, DJ. How are you? So for anybody who came in late, the purpose of tonight's video was to talk about the barriers to investing and reaching financial freedom and making work optional and retiring early. The first one is mindset. Do you believe you can do this? Because if you don't really believe it, you're probably going to quit the first time you hit a speed bump in the road. Eliminate consumer debt. The main thing is don't add any more. So get rid of things like credit cards, payments on a boat, on an RV, unless you're renting them out, to make money. Get rid of all debt above 6% and try to get rid of any debt that has a variable rate. Learn how to save. If you're not saving when you don't have a lot, you're not going to save when you have more. So keep saving. Figure out ways to increase your income. The more you increase your income without increasing your living expenses, the more likely you are to be able to save enough to retire. Don't do things that are high risk. Stop gambling. Stop buying lottery tickets. Don't invest in volatile things like crypto that do vertical pong with money that you need to survive. You want to invest a small percentage of your portfolio as a gambling fund into crypto because that's what you like to do, sure. But when we see more than 40% drop 9 times in less than 10 years and we're down 62% this year to date, might not be the thing to invest in thinking that's how I'm going to retire. Invest in a strategy that plans for inflation. And then the last thing was diversification. Diversify once you're wealthy to protect your wealth, but don't diversify to try to get wealthy because it will prevent you. It's that theory of if you chase 5 rabbits, you're going to starve. Pick your rabbit, master it, chase it, reach financial freedom and wealth, and then diversify to protect it. Julie. TJ, howdy. Chester, extra strength water. It is extra strength water, Chester. Love it. Julie, would you mind sharing your plans for your cruise? This is the first cruise I've ever been on, and we looked at excursions, which we didn't book because we might take some while we're there. This is going to be the first week to figure out how many cruises I think I'm going to want to go on. So this will be the determining factor on what cruise life is like. Going to Alaska, trying out. We'll probably get off in the ports and see what there is to do, but we're not really planning. It was a mistake I made when I went to Thailand. So here's a really quick recap of traveling. When I went to Colombia with my brother, I had a friend from the Marine Corps, literally a billion years ago. We were in Desert Storm together, and he was teaching English at a college. So I went to Colombia and had like a guided tour of everything. He'd been living there for years, so he took us to everywhere. Cartagena, up to the mountains, like, I went pretty much everywhere, like Bogota and Montesalas and Pereira. And I think the only one I really missed was Medellin. That's the only one I didn't get to see. But we had a guided tour and went everywhere. So I didn't have to plan anything. So when we went to Thailand, my brother and I went there and I thought, okay, so we don't have a guided tour. I want to plan this trip. So we're going to these islands for this many days, then we're going to Chiang Mai for this many days, then we're going to go to Pattaya for this many days. Like, we planned it all out. Get to Thailand, and every single business has a kiosk with somebody in their 60s or 70s that is a travel planner. Every single business in Thailand has a travel planner in it with all of the little flyers of what they can do. And they'll book the transportation, the event, where you're going to stay next. Like, planning it was a mistake. So this cruise, I'm trying not to plan things. I'm just going to go on the cruise, see what happens, see what I could have done. If things are overbooked and I can't attend, then that would be something on a future cruise to book out. But so this will be a learning experience. Yeah, so that's the plan on the cruise. And yeah, this is the year where the mental shift is happening, where I think, and Laura sent this in an email, a good, better, more eloquent explanation than what I'm probably going to butcher. I'm working towards financial freedom. I reached financial freedom 4 years ago, and I'm working towards financial freedom. Like, there's a disconnect there. Why am I still doing that? I like my job. I love my job. But when I'm 70, if I make it there, do I want to go? I spent another decade growing a business that I'd already grown. Or do I want to say I spent a decade traveling, making YouTube content, trying to help other people reach financial freedom, writing a book, creating a course, like doing all these things to get more people on the path to financial freedom, or I ran a business. I like my business. Fun job. I get to play in semis like they're go-karts. We have simulators. I get to help people find jobs. I run a nonprofit to help people find jobs. There's no reason for me to quit because it's not like I don't like my job. But there's time freedom that comes. So there are people who like just hate their job. You should find a way out. Quickest way out. Get to financial independence, then change jobs, even if it makes less money because you're independent, whatever. I'm at the financial freedom point where I'm starting to make purchases and don't have to look at price tags. I'm not buying 5 Lamborghinis, but I could see like Matt buying one. I did the poor man's Lamborghini and they had the Corvette. And now I just drive this ridiculously jacked up F-250, which I'm probably going to. The next vehicle will be either the Tesla pickup or the F-150 electric truck. I haven't decided yet. But I have to learn how to spend money. Like that's the new thing. And so not work and spend money at the same time. This is a weird shift. But I'm going to share how all that goes with everybody that watches this content and say, this is how it's going. Here's the things I thought of. Here's the things I didn't expect. Here's what I messed up on. I kind of give you guys as much guidance as I can because I reached financial freedom in less than 10 years and I was starting in a bad position. So that's what I'm trying to share to get everybody to do that. Now I'll be able to share, here's what the change was like. Those 2 things, stop working for money and learn how to spend money. Sound snags. Howdy. My newest duplex is at a 6.125. When you say reduce debt over 6%, is that to say you'd recommend total debt pay down with free cash flows over savings for the next deal? Great question. Thanks for clarifying. Sometimes my brain doesn't work so well. Consumer debt. Credit cards, boat, RV, any personal loans for trips or anything like that, absolutely kill it, right? Focus on 6% or higher to get rid of it, especially if it has adjustable rate. Good debt, where the asset generates more income than the asset costs, I don't care if it's 30% interest. If it's good enough debt, I wouldn't focus on that until consumer debt was gone. And then if you can save and invest for another asset that gets you that, better than 30% return where it made sense. So you bought it at 6.125. If you're getting a 10% yield or a 5% yield on that, and you can do that again, I would do that again before I focused on paying off the debt. But there's a chronology to our investing. For instance, I have 7 properties with 6 mortgages. There was a point where I paid off a mortgage. I funneled all the debt into a 6% loan because at that time they were letting you have 4 mortgages in your name. I got to 4, focused and paid off the single family house. It meant 2 things. It meant the debt snowball and the debt avalanche. It was my largest interest rate loan and my smallest amount that I owed. So I focused and paid it off. And then they raised it to where you can have 10 loans in your name after 2015. So I'm going up to 10. Well, I'm at 6. I'm probably going to add 1 or 2 more at least. But at some point, why add more units if the cash flow is 4 or 5 times what it costs you to live and you're not trying to grow like a machine like the lumberjack landlord or Michael Zuber has grown with just hundreds of units that are adding hundreds of units and letting you upgrade the units and increase the cash flow and all those kind of things that I'm not doing. I wanted financial freedom, now time freedom, that comes from I might sell the single family house that's paid off, pay off 2 of the duplexes so I'd only have 15 units, but more cash flow. So you have a chronology to your investing. What your goals are changes it. And then there's a huge difference between good debt and consumer debt. So I would not focus on paying off the good debt if you're able to save money and invest in an asset that makes as much sense as the one that you just bought made. If you're getting a return and that's the interest, that's what I would do. I would continue to add the assets and watch interest rates. If at some point in the next several years, interest rates go down, if you're at 6.125, if they go below, in my opinion, I would go 5% or less, refinance to a better rate. I wouldn't pull out any of the money to redeploy. I would literally just refinance to increase the cash flow, which is what I did. I had 3 mortgages that were above 5.5%, and refinanced them to 3%. 2 of them are at 3.1%. Yay, 2020. It's great. So you have a lot of options there. And no, I mean, thank you for clarifying. I wouldn't focus on paying off anything over 6% unless it was consumer debt or it had an adjustable rate. One of the things that Matt the Lumberjack landlord did in the last year is him and Michael Zuber got rid of adjustable rate loans as much as possible, right? To either pay them down or refinance them to fixed rate debt so that you don't have to thought or worry for 5 years from now. Larry, I just gave an angel wings. Thanks you. Dan earned it. Couldn't save the sacrificial goat though. Exactly. Army Phaser. Howdy. Only 2 hours late today. Nice, but you're here. Cool. Appreciate it. Marty. Howdy. I'm going to read your name. Orderon? Orderon. What are your drivers for selling a property? So far, I have not sold a property, but I just listed some that might be considered drivers to selling a property. If I owned a property and it had a lot of turnover for something I couldn't understand, like I don't get the physics of it, then there's just a reason why tenants move in and out. They don't like the area, they don't like the parking, they don't like the noise, they don't like the neighborhood. Something about the building, I might look at offloading it. I only have one single family house, and I think I would get a better cash on equity return if I sold it and bought another duplex if I could find the deals. So that's why I'm not always in growth mode. I'm thinking, okay, I'm in retirement mode at some point. That's when I stop adding and get rid of some of the debt to increase the cash flow without adding more units to take care of. But for selling a property, it's that cash on cash return versus cash on equity. That'd be the biggest thing I look at. Cash on cash return, my house is getting, so when I decided to pay it off, I owed $121,000. So I paid it off and it's cash flowing, pure cash flow, $1,800 a month. So it's a great return, but I could sell the house now and walk away with $400,000. If I redeployed that and got a $10,000, 10% cash on cash return of $400,000, that's $40,000 a year. I would get more money if I sold it and redeployed it. I'm not seeing the deals right now to do that. And that's a lot of work for a tenant that's in place and like, I don't have to mess with it all. Like, I have not texted that person since before January 2021. Like nothing, because they were on a 2-year lease. So I will probably talk to them in December if there's any issues. There's been a couple of texts that I saw where 2 little small things happened, but those were texts to handyman where they handle the issues. So it's a squared away tenant. So I don't want to sell. But those are the things I would look at is what would the cash on equity return be if I sold a property and I put that money to work somewhere else? How much money would I be making? Is that worth it? Am I actually able to find those deals? Is there headaches with this tenant, this problem? Do I have tenant turnover all the time? Is it just a bad neighborhood? Those are the things I would consider on selling a property, which I have not done yet. I have not sold a property. Greg, I bought the ozone machine on Amazon for $280. That 2 weekend rentals in my area. Nice, good call. I might have to look at that. I've only done it twice for cigarette smell. And so now I'd probably go look and see what they cost. They were more when I was looking at them, but that's cool. Cash flow. Thanks. I needed to hear that. Get 5 first, then start to branch out. Exactly. Sound snags. Perfect. Thanks for clarifying. That's what the game plan was, but just wanted to make sure I didn't have a blind spot I didn't know about. Awesome. Price and pride. Howdy. Since some of your properties have land, could you keep building off your plexes to maximize your compound? I absolutely could. I have a triplex that's really a house and a duplex. One of them is an ADU. I don't know which one. Where the city asked me, hey, would you like to build a 4th unit here? It's zoned for, you can totally do it. You have the space, it's laid out perfect. So I'm considering it, and I'm watching all of the content from that ADU guy. If you got, there's a channel here. If you're looking at building an ADU or another structure, I would watch all of his content. He's got some great ways of maximizing the return, and it's not always the biggest ADU. Sometimes it's the cost of materials and building versus the rent of a 1 or 2 bedroom against a 3 bedroom, and then the rents might make it a better yield with a smaller structure. So he's got really good content. So if I ever do it, I'm going to watch his content to do it. I might even reach out because he puts his phone number in his videos. You can actually call or text him and he'll answer your questions. So that's that ADU guy. For me to do it on my one to make it a fourplex, the city wants me to do it because then I'm going to tie into city sewer. Right now it's on septic, and I prefer septic for all my properties. So I haven't done that for that yet. And I'm super lazy. I'd rather buy a place that was rent ready or had a tenant in place. And Michael Zuber started over a year ago to build an ADU, and with permitting and supply chain issues, and he's not done yet. So I don't know that he's going to continue to make more. So it depends on your municipality, in your area, how things are going, and what the timeline is, the contractors you can find, and what's allowable there. Some areas are super friendly to it, and some are not. That was a good question. Thank you. Julie, you should pay Cody and Christian a finder's fee to find you a commercial property. So actually, Julie, I am looking at a property, went today. If you were here earlier, I was talking about it. 20 cabins set up as a resort style, seller finance sale. So I'm looking at it. And if it's something I'm interested in, I'm going to go for it. If it ends up being something I'm not interested in, I'm going to send it to Cody and Christian because it's more something like they would do. That's the cool thing is this is a community of people who try to help each other. So I'd be excited if they got a deal that they did really well at. Tom, thanks for some great questions to get these answers. Yes, thank you. I appreciate everybody asking these questions. These are awesome. Aaron, howdy. My brother paid me to rent a room in my house for 2 years, but I didn't claim it on my taxes. Is it worthwhile to file back taxes to get rental history? It would depend on what you're trying to do and if lenders would recognize familial rent on tax returns as rental income. Sometimes it can't be from a family member. So I would talk to lenders before I jump through any hoops with the IRS and then find out if are there any penalties for claiming that income at a date, and talk to a tax professional to see if that would then incur any other obligations for you. So you've got a lot of moving parts there. Will it matter to lenders? And ask a tax pro what the impacts would be. It is a strong strategy to get rental income on your tax returns. That's literally why I reached financial freedom. I moved from my house into an apartment and rented out the house for 2 years to get tax income on my rental income on my tax returns. Words are hard when you're sober. So I could see trying with a tax pro and your lenders to see if that was a strategy that could help you do it. But what's your current debt to income ratio look like? And if you looked at buying a small multifamily as a house hack, lenders might already for that it's that first or second property, debt to income is usually not a problem. It's when you have two and you're trying to add the third within those first 2 years that they could start to ask you questions about your debt to income ratio because you're not a proven. I can get a lease, I can rent to somebody, I can screen a tenant, I can collect rents. And that's why the familial thing sometimes doesn't matter so much to lenders. So that's the two things I would check. The sponsor of tonight's video is Smirnoff. It does not sponsor the video, they just make it possible. Rob, howdy. I have answered the siren song of real estate banter. Nice. What did I miss? Quick 15-second recap. I went over the roadblocks. The purpose of this video was the roadblocks to reaching financial freedom. And here's the Cliff Notes version, literally less than 15 seconds. Get your mindset right. Understand that you can do this. Get out of and avoid consumer debt. Learn how to save. Learn how to increase your income. Stop doing high-risk things like investing in single stocks, crypto, gambling, lotto. Plan for inflation with your strategy and Don't diversify to become financially free. Focus on one asset to become financially free, and then diversify to protect your wealth. That's the purpose of the video. And then there was a little bit of talk about sacrificing a goat. Rob, the higher the cash on cash return through, the more likely you will have to pay taxes on that, though, because your depreciation is fixed. Maybe. I'm cash flowing $800 to $1,000 a unit. Will profit $168,000 this year. It was $128,000 last year. And I carried forward a loss because depreciation is amazing. When you stop buying and your rents go up and your mortgages are down and your expenses are small, yes, your depreciation schedule might not be enough, and it sucks. You're going to make so much money that you have to give some to the government. That is a possibility. Tom, you fell down your stairs 3 times. Don't do that. Allie, howdy. Why do you prefer septic? Are you screaming at me? Should I scream at you? No, I'm not going to scream. So I have about 50-50, half for septic, half for city sewer. Most are city water, one is a well. In 20 years, the single family house I've had to pump it once, 2017, had to have the septic pumped once. I had one clog that had to be cleared up at a septic on my triplex. So that was like $400. That's my expense with septic ever. Sewer, I pay, I don't know, about $900 a month on all the places that are on sewer collectively, every single month, forever. And if there's a problem, like a clog in my line, that's still an expense on me. If the roots break the pipes, it's going to be on my property. It's not going to be on their side. So the benefits to city sewer, I don't see. So I prefer septic. The well, not so sure. I think I prefer city water. I haven't had any expenses on the well, except you have to have it tested and you have to file a permit on it. And like, there's a couple of other things. They still find a way to get money from you. But with the septic, I have not had that issue. Oh, Lumberjack, working for me. Thank you so much. You are my hero. Oh, does anybody know why Matt is my hero? I'll give you 20 seconds to answer that, and then I'll tell you why Matt is my actual hero. And it's something I say at work. It's not really about Matt. Just hope he has a sense of humor. So where somebody yelled at me is where it was. Or did I miss this? Oh. Okay, Julie, I like the cabin idea. Thank you. Santi, howdy. How far would you recommend in minutes to invest? That was where I went today, about an hour away. Since I self-manage, I don't want to drive more than an hour, because if you're going to go work on a unit and you're handy and you're going to do it yourself, that's a 2-hour round trip commute. So a 6-hour day means you're working a full 8-hour day to go do stuff at your rental. So an hour is about as far as I go. And I like the way you asked it. How far would you invest in minutes? So the hour that I went was towards the peninsula in Washington, which meant the distance dictated how long it would take to get there. If I was investing towards King County, Auburn, Kent, the traffic dictates how long it takes to get there. The time of day dictates how long it takes to get there. So how many minutes away depends on things like, what's the traffic like in your area? Where are the tolls at in your area? I wouldn't want 5 tolls one way to get to where you're going to go work on a rental. Good question. Oliver, can you tell us how your fourplex hunt is going? Goose egg. I am watching days on market. I have a couple offers out. I've made a couple of, when was the last offer? I don't even think I made an offer this week yet, which is weird. It was like last week I made my last offer. So I'm finding some, and they're sitting days on market. 1 or 2 are going, and then some are just sitting because they're not motivated sellers. Still hunting. I'm seeing more inventory in my market than I have seen in at least 2 years. So still hunting. If I purchase the 20 cabin deal, that might delay the fourplex for a year or so, and then I'll probably buy the next fourplex with a VA loan as a house hack. We will see. Keith, Can you look into maximum income accepted on rental properties before you have to pay back on your Social Security retirement? I could. The cool thing with rental income coming in, though, is so Social Security is based on your taxable income. Verify that with a tax pro, because I'm not at the age yet, even though I have the white in my beard, to collect Social Security. We have several employees come through our school where they go, okay, this is the year, the next 2-3 years, I can make $14,500 a year, or whatever their number is. So we work them that much, and then we lay them off for the rest of the year. So we do that to benefit the person as much as we can. It's kind of like, what was the thing? Certain healthcare programs require low income. So in the video where somebody asked about healthcare earlier, I have a video where I talked about retiring early, healthcare. I made $128,000 last year. Now, my W-2, I made six figures too, right? So that got taxed. Like, I wrote a big check to the IRS, thank you. And then my rental income, I carried forward a loss, right? When I am no longer working and I go to apply for like Obamacare tax, where you can get whatever it is, a deduction because of your income, I make $0. With depreciation and write-offs, because all that's taken out, then that's what your income is. So with your rental income coming in, verify this with a tax pro. Do they take out depreciation like a lender does? I carry forward a loss. So you'd think, well, how do you buy your next property? You're losing money, right? Well, the lender goes in, they're not stupid. They know that's a paper loss. They take out depreciation and they go, wow, you made $128,000 last year on just rentals. You're bankable, right? You've done this consistently year after year. So you're bankable, which is why I recommend not quitting your W-2 until you have several years of rental income to show that you know how to do this business, and then quit the W-2. Yeah. So verify with the tax pro. If they use what you report on your taxes that's taxable, it's probably going to be zero for several years. There will come a time where you might have paid off property. You've depleted the depreciation past 27 and a half years or 33 years for commercial or whatever you've done, and you're actually earning money. At that point, do you need Social Security? Like, I was talking with somebody the other day, and we were talking about cash flow. And it was what kind of sparked how much. I just did a live stream, a whiteboard Sunday the other day, where I was talking about this is what an average family makes, and here's what I make for my rentals. And then I broke it down to where if I work a 40-hour week, I make like $80 an hour, and don't actually have to work. But if I broke it down by the hour of the day, so 24 hours a day, 365.25 days in a year, I make $19 an hour. Awake or asleep, that's the amount of money coming in. And that's what sparked it is that's the reality, but what's on paper and gets filed has depreciation on it and write-offs on it. So two things to check there. Oliver, how much did you save up to get your first duplex? I had a little over $20,000. I had money, not much, but I had some in a retirement account, so that covered the reserves. I did a 5% down conventional. Closing costs were wrapped in. The seller paid closing costs because it was a buyer's market, not a seller's market. So for the last 2 years, we've had a seller's market where buyers paid the closing costs pretty much. And we have short memories. So we just think it's always been that way. But before 2018, the sellers were paying all the closing costs, at least in all of my deals. So I cut it pretty close, but I moved into a place that had a tenant in one side. I moved into the other. I was actually house hacking. And I did all the repairs myself. The tenant was, what's a polite word for upset with the world? Angry at the previous owner. So I counted, there were 72 punched holes in the drywall. So I got really good at doing drywall repair. Good enough to know I'm always going to hire a handyman to do that. And I did the painting. I did some creative painting, way more than I would, because I was living there. I did more than I would at a rental, because my rentals are clean, safe, functional. Probably safe, clean, functional. That'd be the way I'd go. But yeah, a little over 20,000, but not much. And that was from 2 years of saving, cash flow from a single house, not making a lot of money, but working overtime, had side hustles. Yeah. Then it was still over 2 years to save for the next investment, because the next one was an investment purchase. It starts slow, Oliver, but it gets a lot faster. And then the porn showed up, and then you guys laughed. Nice. Santi, if you need advice for septic or plumbing, let me know. Beautiful. There you go. Santi, if you want people to reach out, you can put your email in the chat and then just put a space for the .com and it'll go in. I have it to where nobody can put links. That's why we get porn info with emojis and we don't get their actual website links in there over and over. I just want to know which one of you surfs so much porn that that's what YouTube says come to my channel. It's not me. Can't be. I'm too old, right? Oliver, do you prefer to have LVP in every room, living room, hallway, and carpet on stairs? That is very true. I want LVP in every room, even bathroom and kitchen, everywhere but stairs. Stairs is carpet. Reduces the risk of slip fall. And it's worth the investment. I mean, carpet is cheaper, right? But carpet is usually 2 to 5 years, or anytime there's a tenant flip. LVP. I have a couple where I have a handyman who's like an artist. There was a chip and he goes in and he sands it down and he uses this epoxy and it's done and it looks like there was nothing wrong with it. So very easy to repair LVP. And he'll probably punch me in the face if epoxy wasn't even the right thing, but something that makes it look good. Yeah. Larry, what essentially does Hemlane offer for self-managing landlords like yourself? I know you're against most management companies unless you're pivoting from previous stance. Nope, not pivoting. Have a video coming out, if I can edit it in time, on Thursday. I talk with Dana, the CEO of Hemlane, and we literally break down what is Hemlane, what does it do, why am I looking at it? I'm the manager. I'm the owner. I still sign the leases. Like I could be in another country and I could have a leasing agent go like that. I'm not getting the third tier. That's the one for the really, really hands off. There's 3 tiers. The first one is they'll list the properties. So you put your property in and then it goes out on 30 platforms. So all way more work than I would ever do. So I'm going to give a review on how that works. I had notes. I recorded at work. So you'll see that the interview with Dana has the more angry looking red map because that's the one at work. This is the one in the fourplex. I love my memory. It's Tuesday. You're doing a live stream. Okay. And Larry was talking about what Hemlane does. Okay. So it's still self-managing. I'm negotiating the rents. I'm on top of that. You can set up to where your handymen have access to a portal so your tenants can message and say, here's the thing that's wrong. It goes to your handyman. You get CC'd. So you know what's going on and you can set a threshold of 300, 400. I do 500 because I've worked with my 2 handymen for a long time. I trust them up to $500. Beyond that, it's not so much that I don't think they're going to get the work and do the work and be able to charge for it. I want to pick the refrigerator or I want to pick the whatever is going to cost that much. I'll be involved in that. So it lets you set up that and it lets you automate things like rent collection. Because right now, I've got a video on here, how I collect rents, 3 things I consider. So there's 3 things I consider. The first one is make it easy on the tenants. So my current existing tenants, I'm probably going to continue to do things like Venmo, Apple Pay, Cash App, PayPal, whatever they were used to using, as long as they don't incur a fee for them or for me, then we might shift. But Hemlane collects it with ACH. So I put in my banking info. The tenant just sends the money to Hemlane. 2 to 3 days later, I get the money. It's the same as almost all the other ways that I collect without a fee. So going forward, when I put in a new tenant, I'm going to say, here's the portal that you sign up for, and this is how it'll be, and it'll be the only one they know. It also lets you automate things like, this is when your rent is due, because here's a risk with accepting payments with Venmo. There is a workaround, which I have not had to use, but I've had it ready to. If you ever have to evict somebody for non-payment and they owe you $2,000 and you go to file the eviction and they send you $5, you have accepted a partial payment and the eviction timeline is reset, right? So that's a risk. Technically, you can take the money if it comes in Venmo and put it into a holding account, provide proof to the courts if you get a court date that that money went into a holding account and that the dates stay the same. But there's a whole bunch of arguing to try to explain. Whereas Hemlane goes, you can't pay anything but a full payment. And she actually broke it down in this video that comes out Thursday, where if you have 3 roommates, you can set it up where they all pay one, that one pays you, or you can make caveat for this rental. This is how they can pay. I mean, you break it down with a lot of control, which is what I'm looking for. I like control. Then what else did they do? So you can set up your own handyman, or you can get notified of things that are repaired, or they have a nationwide network of something like Thumbtack, where they use the pro in that area, and then they do a review when the job is done, and you get to write a review when the job is done. So there's like all this, and there's three, the super cheap, the middle, and the more expensive one for like how much hands-on or hands-off you want to be. I'm actually looking forward to it, super excited. And I like the idea that if you go to hemlane.com and you use the code DION, so Dion will get you 10% off your first year, whichever package you choose. And then let me know what your experience is like, because I will make videos. I am only going to be doing the endorsing because I'm trying it out. Like when I did a review of Michael Zuber's course, I did the course. I want to do a review of Chandler David Smith's course. I've signed up, but I haven't had the time to go through the course. I want to go through the course and then come back and go, here's what I liked, here's what I didn't like, here's if it's worth it or not worth it. Like I took the Michael Zuber's course and I was like in the first stages, and he showed me a trick with how to use a spreadsheet on. I'm not going to take away his thunder, but he showed me something in the first couple of videos, and I was like, that's worth the course right there. That shifted how I've done almost everything since then. And then the rest of the course was there. So I endorsed that course, and we've been working together ever since. And the really cool thing was Mike, when I did it, he said, just be honest. He didn't like tell me, that's the thing I listen for. Like I'm going to be doing a review of Cody and Christian's multifamily strategy course. I've just got to find time for these. And not the reason why I should retire early. I could do more reviews of courses, and tell some people these are the ones to avoid. These are the ones to go for. Yeah, looking forward to that. So that's my breakdown on Hemlane. There's a much better version, more in-depth detail with Dana on Thursday that's coming out on what Hemlane does. Yeah. So I haven't shifted. I'm still managing, but what can I use that would make it easier? Lumberjack landlord, because I'm always ready for a picnic. Exactly. How many people saw the video the other day where the lumberjack landlord was doing, what was it, runway modeling? Allie, what's your thoughts on home warranties? I have one and it comes in handy. Got repairs on my units. Good. So you might change my opinion. Oh, and I wasn't yelling at you. Okay, nice. My experience with home warranties is all warranties. First of all, there was a couple of companies here in Washington, Universal City, Circuit City. Every time I bought something like an electronic and I got the 2-year extended, whatever, the store closed down. So I stopped getting those. One time an extended warranty worked out for my daughter's car, where like at the end, the very like last week, her transmission went out and she got a new transmission for her Mustang. Great. But a home warranty company has a department whose job it is to make sure they only pay claims that fit into their narrow criteria. Like it's their job to try to disprove as many claims as possible. So if you're brand new and you don't have reserves and have very little cash flow, I might do a warranty on 1 or 2 properties. But once you have cash flow from properties and you've built up your reserves, I will never have a home warranty. That's my current stats. If it changes in the future, I'll tell you why. But it hasn't now. Yours is one of the rare times where I've heard somebody say, hey, my warranty worked out. Normally it's, this is the thing that they said, that's why they can't help us. And then they'll list off a reason. Sometimes they're good. I haven't seen it. Chester, is it because Matt is good at melting snowflakes? Yeah, that is why I edit my videos, especially when I record with Matt. Rob, the worst part of real estate, saving up for the next deal. It gets easier and faster. It gets to the point where you're thinking, I got to find a place to put this money to work, which is a terrible problem to have. Eli, do you have any home security systems for your properties, like outdoor surveillance cameras? The places that I live, I use the Arlo camera system, which I get from Amazon. I will put a link in the comments below if I remember. Hey Siri, remind me to do a link for Arlo.
Okay,
All
add
right,
it to
I've added it
reminders.
to reminders.
Okay. There's like 3 series in here. Echoes. And what was I talking about? I hate my memory. Home security systems. So I don't have any at my properties that I don't live at. I do put up some fake cameras at a couple. and all of my trucking school campuses uses the Arlo system too. Tenants, I allow the tenants to put them up. I believe in security. So no, not at my properties that I don't live at. But I don't have like apartment units. I have a fourplex, a triplex, and that's a house and a duplex. The rest are duplexes in a single family. So it's not like I've got interior hallways where tenants share that space. They all have their own driveways, their own garages. If I was doing short-term Airbnb, I would absolutely have a custom, camera system in place, like the Ring or something, where I could see who's coming and going at least. But I do not. Thank you for your hard work, Lumberjack. I appreciate it. Rob, very slow, Oliver. Yeah. Keith, thanks. I think my forced IRA withdrawal hit me this year. Ouch. Santi, Dion, to obtain the maximum yield from your investments, should you avoid paying cash? There are times it makes sense to pay cash. I was looking, and this is a channel to check out too. I'm sure you've heard about them, but Ken McElroy, he has bought some with cash too. It can make sense. I am saving enough to where I might purchase one with cash. It is the lowest yield you're going to get, and you might end up paying taxes because you might not have enough write-offs, especially later on in your depreciation schedule. But you can always refinance out later if rates go down. It can make sense to buy cash. I have not done it yet. Not yet. I may someday, but not today. If you buy cash and then you cash out refinance later, your interest rate is going to be a little bit higher than if you purchased it with a mortgage to start. But sometimes it's the way you get the seller's attention and you're more likely to get the deal. Can close sooner. So there are times it makes sense. I haven't done it yet, and it doesn't get you the best yield. But sometimes getting the deal, 100% of an okay is better than 0% of nothing. Jason, I'd love a review on Cody and Christian's course. Okay, I will be doing that. I'm actually doing a version of the binder store strategy, which I need to do this week for their course. It's a portion of that. Theirs is more multifamily, but some people will do the multifamily by finding an owner finance sixplex. Binder strategy would work great there. So I'm trying to help them out too. Sound. Super interested to hear what you think about Hem Lane over time. I pay a property manager, but I'm tempted to transition to self-management if I can get the tools set up. Matt's your inspiration. Mine too. It's great. And so, Sound, let me know in the comments. I did a video on the hidden cost of property management. Let me know if you've seen it. If you haven't, or if anybody wants to hear the hidden cost of property management, I will tell you. But if not, there is a video on my channel called The Hidden Cost of Property Management. It's one of the ones where I went down the slides. Let me know. DJ, I have home warranties on all of mine because handyman are nuts here. So if you know your local reason and you have a reason for it, then it would make sense. I probably am not like I probably don't like home warranties because I have three really amazing handymen. One went back to a full-time driving job at like $56 an hour. I get it. But I have the two, and I can literally just send a text and say, hey, do this. Or I send a text saying, hey, I'm going on a cruise. I'll be gone all next week. So handle things. And they go, okay. It's like, it's no problem. So there you go. Know your local, know your resources. So there are times it makes sense. Rob. So Dion, tree expert. Family does trees. If I put weed killer in an area with tree roots going through it, will it poison the tree 15 feet away? Usually no. You can usually put weed killer right on a tree and it doesn't bother it. Read the instructions on it in case it's like the wrong kind or something. But I've seen people do weed killer all around trees with no negative impact. If your tree is a sprout, under 3 feet, yeah, it might impact it. But if it's a tree, it's not generally going to. Santi, when you are financing, is there a way to bypass insurance? Probably. Never would want to. I even have insurance on my paid off property. Insurance isn't there to protect the building if the building burns down. Let's say it's paid off and you don't even have a mortgage. It's paid off, it's down, burns down, no big deal, right? What if there's a 15-year-old kid in your house when it burns down because they were in there lighting off firecrackers? Now you're liable for the death of that kid on your property. That's what insurance is for. And I have up to 300 slip, fall, or injury on the property, which probably wouldn't cover that. So then I have a $2 million policy umbrella, which names all of my properties and covers me. So that to me, it makes me comfortable to do that. So I wouldn't go without insurance. You can owner finance to do lending and go around insurance requirements. Most lenders are going to require it. They're at least going to require insurance to cover the amount of the mortgage, if not the amount of full replacement. I recommend full replacement because I want to be made whole. I don't care that the lender's made whole. I'd rather I be made whole and I keep making the payments because I'm buying the properties for the cash flow. That's a good question. It's an interesting question I haven't thought of before because I didn't think I would want to get around the insurance. I have done what's called a two-tier insurance. Purchasing a fourplex, roof needs done. So I go, hey, I want insurance with a bad roof. And it's in the writing. And they go, okay, great. Your premium was like $2,700 a year until the roof is replaced, which took like 2 weeks to get it all scheduled and done. And then the insurance is $900 a year. So it changed after that. So if you have some reason that's making insurance hard, you can put it in there that give me a timeline on when I can get these things repaired, and they'll underwrite it on a two-tiered program where it then goes to your fixed rate for insurance once the issues are resolved. And they will come by and inspect. Oliver, can you share again what door, pad, brands, and link you use for your rentals? I will. I will leave it in the comment section at the end of this video. I will put a link in the comments below for my locks. I don't think I have them saved. I do not. Nope. So I'll put that in the comments below and I'll pin that comment. I use Schlag coded locks where when you put in the code, you can then turn to engage or disengage the lock because the batteries last the longest if there's not a motor in there that pushes it in and out. And I usually do it on 2 exterior doors so that if one battery, which is usually the door that gets used the most, dies, then they can get in and out of the other one and know to change the batteries. I have it in the lease that the tenants will change the batteries once a year. Lumberjack Landlord is a super cool landlord who provides batteries. I just have it in the lease. D-Lam, howdy. What are the average prices on a duplex where you are? About $550 right now. The average rents, taxes, sorry, I'm a numbers guy. So the average ones right now that don't make sense are $550, maybe even a little more. Taxes are around $5,000 a year. Insurance is about $450, maybe $500 a year. Rents depends on 2-bedroom or 3-bedroom. 2-bedroom rents are like $1,600 a unit. 3-bedroom is $2,000 to $2,200 a unit. So each side. Those are the rough numbers. So I'm looking for deals that are listed at $550, stay on the MLS more than 10 days, and then I'm going to start making my 480 offers and see if something sticks. They don't make sense at $550 with 2-bedroom each side. It might make sense with 3-bedroom each side, getting $2,200 rents each side and paying $555. Sure. But for 2 bedrooms, it's got to be significantly lower than that. There you go. Like I have a friend who just closed on a duplex in November for $555. I had a property 6 houses away, a duplex, that was $298. Hers was a better deal. I bought mine in 2018 when interest rates were 6%. She bought hers with 3%. I think it's like 2.8 or something. Like it's even better than 3. It might be somewhere there. And her rents are double what mine were. Now my rents went up and my rates were refinanced, so mine became a better deal. But first year yield, hers is like 17%. Mine was 10.9 or something. It was really close to 10. But time in the market always wins. I've owned it now for 4 years. Rents have over doubled. I refinanced in 2020 to a 3% mortgage. Like it became an amazing deal. Like that deal, 2 of those, I could have retired. Yeah. And cool. Thanks for the question, Dion. I appreciate that. Sound. No, I don't think I've seen that one. I'm going to pull it up in another tab and watch after this stream. Okay, cool. Larry, since Convoy does fixed DSCRs up to 8 units, will you be shopping for? Yes, I'm shopping for 1 to 8s. So everything in between. in the near future, or is that too much concentrated units for? No, it would be, if it was my first rental, I don't think I'd want to start with an 8 unit because you're all very concentrated, pulling tenants from all the same economic drivers in the same area. I want a little more diversified, but with my portfolio now, so you asked what I would do, 7 properties, all except for 2 are 10 miles apart. Those 2 are like 7, but the rest are all pulling tenants from different sources. And so now with the cash flow that I have, the 8 units, like I'm looking at a 20 unit owner financed, if we can figure out fixed rate debt, if I can figure out the numbers that it will work with the debt of the price that they're asking. Like there's a bunch of stuff to look at there. So I would have 20 units concentrated in one area with my portfolio the size that it is now. I'm considering. Wouldn't have wanted to start with that though. Allie, yeah, I want to hear the hidden cost of property management because I have one. Okay. So it's just a different way of looking at it. The other day I did a video on, we usually talk cash on cash return or cash flow or yield. And I talked on, with my rental portfolio, if I never get out of bed, this is how much money I make per hour, right? Different way of looking at it. Here's how to look at property management. If you run a company and you're going to sell a product for $100,000 and they buy it with a credit card, if you understand business at all, you didn't just make $100,000, right? So if they're gonna pay for a credit card, you're gonna pay a 3% convenience fee for using the credit card. So the seller would pay $3,000 to the credit card company. You'd get $100,000 from the client, so you made $97,000. But most businesses operate on a margin. So if you sell a thing for $100,000, you're probably going to profit 20%. Like I run a truck driving school, the what do you call it? The EBITDA, the margin, there's like a 20 to 24% margin, right? Most times. So if we make $100,000, 20,000 of that would be profit. But if we paid with a credit card, 3% is going to go. So instead of getting $100,000, we get 97, right? 3% doesn't sound so bad. But here's how it looks. And Chester did the math for me on this. If you're paying the $3,000 for the credit card on the $20,000, because the gross money coming in is 100, but your profit is 20. The 3,000 doesn't come off the 100. The 3,000 comes off the 20. So instead of being a 3% convenience fee for your profit, it's a 15% convenience fee. So if you have $100,000 in rents coming in and you profit $20,000 and your property management takes 6%, you're giving them $6,000. And that's just for the fees. That doesn't count the upcharge for having a handyman go out because they've got to cover them, all the other extra costs. That doesn't cover tenant turnover fees. I mean, we're just talking the 6%. That 6% comes off your 20,000. You're now paying 30% instead of 6%. So the hidden cost is you're paying a percentage of gross rents that comes out of profit. So a lot of people think, oh, my property manager is only 10%. Well, that would be a lot more. My property manager is only charging me 6%. Well, that's 30% of profits if you have a 20% margin. Sometimes your margin is 2%. And the property manager makes you end up losing money. That's why some deals wouldn't work with property management, but would work without it. So there are reasons to have property management. If it's at a distance, I say property management. If you're looking for, if for some reason it took you a long time to manage your properties, property management might help. But for me, 16 rental units takes me about 2 hours a month. I believe it would take me 2 hours a month to verify everything that was going on with property management. So the time trade-off is 0. And then property management makes money on a tenant turnover and an owner loses money on a tenant turnover. So your motivations are different. That's the hidden cost of property management. And like I said, it's just a different way of looking at it. Cool. Thank you. And then we've got extra porn tonight. I appreciate all the work you're doing, Matt. It's great. The hidden cost, you not knowing what is going on with your property. That's a good one too. Santi, in your experience, 58 houses has a low 5, is that 5B? Houses has a low demand in your market or either I'm too sober Or you're typing weird. In your experience, houses has a low demand in your market or take more time or pending. What does it rent faster in your market? I'm not sure, Santi, if you can retype that. I'm trying to read it, and I feel like a specific politician right now. So 5-bedroom. Okay, thank you. 5-bedroom houses has low demand. It would have a high demand. I would probably rent a 5-bedroom out to Section 8 because they pay per bedroom and they pay significantly more for more bedrooms. That's how Joe Asamoah, if you're familiar with BiggerPockets, he's been on a couple times now. He's in the Washington, D.C. area, and he specifically targets 5 or 6-bedroom houses and rents out to the housing program, and he gets over $5,000 a unit per month. So there is a market for that. There's high demand. I don't know. So I have a 4-bedroom house. Everything else is 3 or 2. Demand is massive, and the housing authority has a line of people waiting for those places to open up. So I don't know that I would move away from it. Would it yield? So this is what I like from Michael Zuber. Single family, small multifamily, apartment complex. Which investment has the best yield? And then which one has fixed rate debt? Single family houses have lower turnover than apartments do. Small multifamily have very little turnover. I will have had 4 in 10 years. Next month, I'm having my 4th one in 10 years. And I think only one of them moved away to rent somewhere else. One inherited a house, one died, one bought a house, and one moved away. And that's small multifamily. So very, very little turnover. I think rent demand is probably area specific. You might want to watch some and see how fast they rent out. In mine, I put the listing up for a day and had to take it down because I had so many inquiries that it was just a day. And this was the side of a duplex, 3-bedroom, 1.25 bath, 1.25. There is in the master room, this. See if it shows up on the screen. There's a sink and cabinets and a mirror. So I guess, and that's in the master. So somebody, it's called a continental bedroom or bathroom. Somebody can do their makeup. Somebody can shave while the kids are in the bathroom. The tenant that moved in just came in and looked and goes, "What's that?" I hadn't seen one like it before until I bought the place either. But works out good. Tom, funny how plans change. I agree. It really is. Allie, man, I'm about to fire her. I use her because it's convenient and I still make profit. So and I didn't want to talk about this too much in the video, but I have a few friends who've invested in real estate. One of them's had kind of a bad taste in their mouth because it didn't work out right. And the problem was their property manager. Even my brother has a problem with property management. I told him I would have fired them 5 issues ago, let alone what they've got going on now. Yeah, it's crazy. So vet your property management, monitor your property. I just made a video with Cody and Christian that I think is coming out on their channel on one of the problems is making sure property management is actually doing what they're supposed to. And having an exit plan. Another play, you can shop around for contractors. If you hire a contractor to build a deck and it comes out all wrong, you can use that contractor again. Well, every month is a new project for me and a property manager. If I have one, I'm going to make sure that every month is going well, or they're not going to be the one doing the work anymore. DLAM, do your tenants pay all your utilities at your properties? Okay, so I'll answer that question first. When I can, yes. There are a couple of properties where the owner of the property has to pay water, so I charge a flat rate that is slightly more than what my monthly cost is, so that in those few months in the summer when the water costs more, it balances out. But check your local area. Sometimes you have to charge exactly what you were paying, but they won't let a tenant make the payment. So there are some where I make the water payment and then charge a flat rate to the tenants. But everything else, electric, I don't think there's any trash, all that utilities goes to the tenant. Do you have an age property rule that you look for built after 1970 only? No. So I have one from 1920. It's either 21 or 29. I think it's 21. But what I check is, when was everything updated? How much life is left in the roof? What is the foundation in your inspection report? You tell you those things. When was electricity updated? So it's not knob and tube wiring. It's not aluminum. What is the plumbing still old rusting metal, or has it been replaced? Is it PEX? Whatever. That's the timeline I'm worried about, not when it was built, but when were things updated. I do prefer, when I'm just looking at properties, like I looked at one that was that old and it made sense. I like 1979 or newer, so that I don't have to worry about asbestos or lead paint. But I'll look at older buildings, and then I'll just follow all the steps that Matt, the lumberjack landlord, talks about on how to handle lead paint issues or asbestos issues. He has more experience on me than that, so that's the best question for him. Not the best question. That's a good question for him. Sunday morning on his live stream at Matt, the lumberjack landlord, the lumberjack landlord here on YouTube. He goes on at 11:30 Eastern or 8:30 Pacific. Yep. Santi, 5-bedroom, thanks. Tom, some people retire to cruise ships. They do. There's a way to do it where it's cheaper than a retirement center. Interesting. All right, Rob, ciao. Have a good night. The toddler is getting impatient for dinner. Nice. Laura, hola. Glad you made it. Thank you. Want to hear the hidden property? So I covered that. Good. Perfect. Appreciate it. I think she was catching up with us. There we go. And Ryan, howdy. What % of rent do you typically collect from your Section 8 tenants? So they're in our area, they're supposed to pay no more than 30% of their income. So it varies. And almost every time that I've done a rent increase, the housing authority did a reevaluation of the tenant, and the tenant's portion went down. So I've never had a problem raising rents with Section 8. I actually used the binder strategy on Section 8 last year, so a little over 12 months ago now, on a 2-year lease, where I was trying to increase the rent, and they told me that many bedrooms gets you 1,800. I said, cool, here's all the comps in the area, emailed them the work saying they're 23, 24, and I want to go to 22. And they said back, okay. So their limit was here. Here's what I proved the area average is. They agreed to my 22. So, and during that evaluation, the tenant's portion went down. Because sometimes it's been 3 or 4 years since they've evaluated what that tenant's income is versus what the rents are versus the percentage that they need to pay. Cool. Santi, there are almost no 5 bedrooms in my area. Ben Mala also says cut big rooms in half because people just want to put kids on a room, not needing to be big. That's a good way of looking at it. Cut some rooms in half. I almost always turn a den or a family room into a bedroom because it's just a bedroom now. From my experience, families don't hang out and watch TV anymore. Everybody's got their own devices to be entertained with, and they're all in different rooms. So it's better you rent more for rooms than you will for anything like that. D-Lam, do property managers protect you from potential lawsuits by creating another layer before it gets to you? I would think the opposite. Each area has specific laws for owners and laws for property managers, and different laws that kick in at different rates for property managers, different size of scale. How many units are they managing? And what licenses are they required to have? I think in some areas you're actually required to have a real estate license if you're managing more than 6 rentals. Like it's each area is so weird. Doing things like putting it into a LLC or hiring a property manager makes it look like people are renting from a corporation, and people think corporations have deeper pockets than mom and pop owners do. You are more likely to get sued if it has a name on it. So even if it's property management or the name of your LLC, one of the things that increases the likelihood of you being sued is making it look like you have money to go after. So Allie, you will never do Section 8 again. Nightmare. So there are a lot of bad tenants, Section 8 or not. And the mistake a lot of people make is buying a property that is Section 8. It generally means that property attracts such bad tenants that Section 8 was the only option. Your property attracts the level of tenant. If your property looks nice and your rents are high, you're not going to attract bad tenants. I screen Section 8 or not Section 8, 700 or higher credit score, no evictions ever. It's only things I look at. I don't look at criminal backgrounds. I don't look at work income or anything like that. If somebody has worked to get their credit score above 700 and has never been evicted, they will work to protect that record. I have Section 8 tenants with an 830 credit score. Section 8 is fixed income, not low income. Low income has problematic. It's usually a Class D war zone. The builder got tax breaks to turn certain number of them into low income, and it attracts that kind of clientele. If your property is nice and it's in a nice area and you screen exactly like you do anybody else, I have just as many good tenants with Section 8 as I do non-Section 8. I've only had one bad tenant, and that was when I was starting out. So my first one I kind of just take off the books because I was learning. But my other tenant that was the most problem was just a young couple I had to educate on. This is what a lease is, and this is what is a you problem, and this is what is a me problem. Like 5 times that conversation had to happen. But I've never had a problem with Section 8 because I screen just as hard as I do for non-Section 8. So maybe you've had a bad experience. I can totally understand. I got no go juice. But do what makes you comfortable. And I wouldn't want my whole portfolio Section 8. I believe in diversification. I do 1/3 military, 1/3 Section 8, 1/3 working or retired. So that if there's a stock market crash, prolonged government shutdown, or a pandemic, my rents keep coming in. At least the whole portfolio is not decimated all at once. And it would be illegal to run an ad that says military only or no military, no Section 8, right? You run that, you're going to run into some discrimination law. But I control how I advertise. If I have a unit that's coming available and I want another military tenant in there to try to keep my balance, it's not a perfect science, but as close as I can to the 1/3 ratio, I go advertise on base. Who am I going to get? If I have a unit that's opening up and I want a Section 8 tenant, I call the housing authority and I say, here's the link that I'm releasing on Tuesday. Let your tenants know that need a whatever bedroom count this is. So I can kind of control who I'm going to get that way. Just a diversification strategy to protect the wealth now that I've got it. Lumberjack, property management usually makes the issue worse, and that I'm right. Take a screenshot. Matt said Dion's right. I don't care what it's about. Tom, will you sell with seller financing? I have no idea, but when I'm 75 or 80, maybe. I don't plan on selling. I think until death to us part is what works for me, for my kids to inherit this. I like the idea of the stepped up tax system. So if that goes away, that might change my motivation to sell. Serious health issues so that I don't become a burden to my kids or anything else that's unforeseen that can pop up can do it. I would consider selling with seller financing. If I was ever selling, I would probably try to 1031, so that wouldn't be a seller financed if I was young enough to still want to be buying. But I would consider seller financing. I'm just not looking to really sell. Ryan, howdy. Under contract on my first property, 2 duplex, currently month to month, 800 and 1,000. Market rate is 13 to 17. Housing authority will pay 1410. Exploring my options if binder strategy doesn't go well. So the binder strategy is a conversation. Have in your mind what you think could be good. Don't say it out loud. The first person to speak is the one who loses all power. You may be surprised that they come back offering more than what you're expecting. And if they're paying 1410 and averages are 13 to 17, you're probably not going to get the housing authority to go much higher either. But your binder strategy from 800 to 1,000, that sounds very much like numbers I've had where they came back with over 1,300. So $300 increase on them is pretty big. It was enough for me to make the numbers work. You don't get area average, but you're not having to do a rehab. You're not having to screen and place a tenant. You're not having to do all of that and advertise. So I know most owners will want the tenants out, do a rehab, and get best area average rents. It is the most money, the best yield that you'll get, but it also is a time and energy commitment. And you have to live with displacing a tenant when you didn't even give them a conversation to see what they could afford and maybe offer enough to make it worth your time to keep them there. And tenants after the binder strategy are happy Happy tenants don't trash properties. Happy tenants don't leave. Allie, and you got a Section 8 tenant with the apartment when you bought it. So you didn't get to screen. So that's the time we really take the risk. Section 8 or not. And we just plan, okay, they're never going to pay. It's going to be trashed. I'm going to have to do an eviction. Plan for that because you didn't get to screen. I haven't had to do that, but that's the plan going in. So good point. Absolutely. Santi, would you avoid buying on the ghetto neighborhood? Except, first of all, I have the wrong pigment to ever use that word. Would you avoid buying in the war zone neighborhoods, even with Section 8? I wouldn't want to own Section 8 there at all. I wouldn't want to own their Section 8 or not. The property attracts the tenants. If you're buying in a war zone, you are going to attract war zone tenants. I would want Section 8 mansion, right? So don't think Section 8 means low income. Don't think it means fixed income. Think somebody with disability, set income forever, 830 credit score. That's why Joe Asamoah is killing it, because he gets over $5,000 a month for his units because he buys nice houses in nice areas, and they pay the area average rents. Whatever your area average. You buy in a war zone, you're going to get war zone rents. You buy in a nice area, you're going to get nice area rents. And generally, you're going to attract nicer tenants. I'm with Allie, though, on you buy a property, it doesn't matter if they're Section 8 or not. That's a risk. DJ, I'd love to have all mine on the Section 8 program. It is the lowest risk strategy. I mean, your rent is paid. Even when we had a 64-day government shutdown, Section 8 continued to pay. The reason I diversify with some working and some military is because if the local government shut down long enough for Section 8 not to pay, it only hits 1/3. Didn't happen in the longest government shutdown we've had, but it's possible. Just like I build my portfolio expecting, not hoping for, but expecting rents to drop 50%. And I've said this before, so if you're familiar with my content, sorry for the 20-second repeat. Since we've started tracking the data in 1914, there has never once been a time when rents decreased. In 2009, it looks like the one time that it did, it was because Class A dropped because of the recession, enough to make it look like all rents went down. But in Class C or B areas that I invest in, mine are all C, ones like B minus, rents went up in 2009. So I've never seen a rent decrease. They can go down in some areas if you don't have enough economic drivers, like the car manufacturers move away or the Silicon Valley gets hit by .com harder than other areas. Rents can go down in an area. But if you're investing the way I suggest, next to several economic drivers and properties spread out, so you're close to base, port, college, hospital, Boeing, Amazon, a beach, something that attracts people, several sources of tenants, I'm planning on a 50% rent decrease and have never seen a 5% decrease. Sleep like a baby. DLAM, if nothing is available in my area that makes sense, but bad war zone areas, would you save and wait right now, attempt to buy long distance rental? So if nothing's available, I wouldn't buy in a war zone. It'll look like a great yield, but your turnover and your expenses and your safety, no, it's not worth it. I would look at investing at a distance. And anytime somebody talks about investing at a distance, I say to check out the channel Millennial Mike. He lives in Seattle. He house hacks a duplex there. So house hacking to me is still a very important strategy. But then he invests in Gary, Indiana, and a couple of other places now. I think he's in Milwaukee or something. I was just talking with him the other day. Actually, we did a video. He came over and we did it here. Actually, we did it at work because the other map will be there. But he has great content on picking a market, picking and screening. And like we were talking about property management earlier, I talked with him about how to make sure your property manager is doing their job, those kind of things. So Millennial Mike here on YouTube. Allie, glad you said that because my fourplex is near a military base. Awesome. Nice. Laura, my property manager company protects themselves from lawsuit. It is in the lease contract. So they protect themselves, not you. Okay, so that further answers that question. Ryan, $1,400 on each side will get you a 25% cash on cash return. So how does that compare to local? What is good local? Because it sounds great, right? If you're 25%, that's over twice what I would get. It's about what lumberjack landlord gets. So Depends on your local market. At 1,400 each side sounds great. If they're at 8 and 1,000, I would expect 1,300 each side, and you maybe only get a 21% cash on cash return until next year or the year after. Remember, the first year cash on cash return is what we shoot for to make sure we're putting our money to good use. It gets better. My first year on almost all my properties, except for one, I was between 10 and 12% cash on cash return. Bought one that was at 17. But as I've owned the properties, my overall cash on cash return is way above 20% after, because I'm looking at what it costs to buy, right? The cost to acquire never changes. That's what I spent to get that property. But rents go up, mortgages go up very slow, and rents go up much faster, especially last year. Allie, you can say that that's not racist. It's racist to identify people with there you go. So behind the scenes overshare. I come from a very racist family. You're either Irish or Italian or the enemy. It doesn't matter what the other anything going on. And you're just like, they had racial slurs for Polish and German and English. And like, it didn't matter where you were from. I escaped racism by joining the Marine Corps. Still a family I can't be around. So I try to avoid using terms like that. Cool. And we just touched on the 3-hour mark. So I'm going to give it another minute to see if there's any further questions. I want to say thanks to everybody who came and hung out. I hope that this information helps you reach financial freedom. You guys are awesome. The Lumberjack Landlord does a live stream on Sunday mornings, 11:30 Eastern, 8:30 Pacific. And next week, because I probably won't have Wi-Fi because I'm going to be on a cruise, Matt is stepping up and doing a live stream to answer questions. And he can go 1 hour, 20 minutes, whatever, as long as there's questions coming in. This is your ability to sit down with people, me, Mike, Matt, and ask questions in live stream where you're learning what is top of mind awareness. We can research a thing and I can make a video where I go, let's see what's the difference between a home equity line of credit and a cash out refinance, which was one of my favorite videos to film because I would play 4 different characters in that, right? So, but I got to research it. And that stuff, you could have Googled that. You could have done the research and put that all together. That's what I did to make the video. Like, I've never used an FHA loan. So I had to go, what is an FHA? What does it do? Who's it benefit? What are the negatives, right? And I make the video. Totally happy doing that work. But in these live streams, you ask a question. In order to invest successfully and know a good deal and make decisions really quickly without having to go and research something, this is the information that Mike and Matt and me keep constantly in our minds. And you're getting it here without having to take a course. You don't have to do super chats to get our questions answered. At some point, when we have 100,000 or 200,000, I think Michael Zuber will be the first one to get there. His live streams are only an hour. I think at some point, to make sure you get your question answered, you might want to do a super chat to get a little bit of money to go to Mike, but it gets his attention, it pops up big, and that way you won't get missed in his stuff. Right now, for the next year or two, I think me and the Lumberjack Landlord are small enough where we can answer all the questions. And we both go for, 2 to 4 hours or whatever it takes. So let me make sure we get through all the questions here. Santi, for Section 8, does the government pay different per bedroom depending on the area, or is it the same? It's totally dependent on the area. The local area average rents per bedroom, they only count bedroom space. So a family room and a den or a garage or a pool or a hot tub or anything like that has no impact on it. They literally come and they go, how many legal bedrooms do you have? Which means a certain number of square feet. I've heard 100 square feet. I've heard 80 square feet. 2 forms of entrance and egress, so a window and a door or 2 doors. In some places, it's a source of heat, a source of cool, power. So it's got to have a way to have a light. What else makes it a closet? You have to have a closet, and the closet has to have doors. In order for my one to count as a 4th bedroom, I had to put saloon doors on the closet so that there were doors on the closet. And it's based on the area average rent per bedroom for your area. And that changes constantly. So sometimes you can get them to raise the rent if you find that there's more that you can find and show them this is what the actual area is. It goes the other way too. If you're in an area and rents go down, housing authority can lower what they'll pay too. I have never seen it, but it's possible. I guarantee in like Detroit, when the car manufacturers moved away, rents went down. I mean, we have all the buildings empty and you can buy a building for $3,000. rents probably went down. Local areas. Thanks, John. Gene. Thanks, Keith. Ellie. Thanks for answering, and you're yelling at me. Awesome. Thank you. I love when people have sense of humor. Santi, thank you. DJ, thanks. Thanks for sharing that overshare, and I appreciate you as a human. Thank you. That's why I do the overshares. And I know sometime I'm going to make an overshare and somebody's going to like type out, "You're mean" or whatever, but I just try to be me. You can do this as a regular person. So thanks, DJ. Thanks, Murph. Thanks, Paul. Thanks, everybody. Monica, howdy. What's your experience on how long it takes for you to rent a property? The longest I've had a property empty was 4 days, and I had to struggle to get things done. I just had a tenant that moved out they bought a house, moved out end of May. I had applicants trying to move in, but this time I had to actually like replace a sink and 2 faucets and the ceiling fan and make sure I had time to get it done. So I have a tenant moving in. I have never had a property vacant without applicants trying to get into it. And if you manage your properties well, so this is a great question. As a new investor, that's a very common concern. What if I buy a place and it's empty? How long can I hold it empty? And I don't want to say you're wrong, but that's the wrong question. If I have a rental and it's empty, how much lower than the desired rent I want to get do I have to bring it to get a tenant? If area average rents in your area are $2,200 a month for a 3-bedroom and you list one at $100 a month, you have a tenant, right? So if it's 22 and you want 22, but you're not updated, you don't have the fanciest stuff, you might take a while to find a tenant. But if you're 21 or 2050, you're going to have a whole bunch of demand for it. So it's not how long will it sit empty, it's what is the area average and how much less than that will I need to go before the desire kicks in and somebody's just in the property. That's what you're going to cover maybe for the first year or two until you get this figured out and cash flow coming in. So I always run the rents at 10% below area average when I'm running the numbers to buy a property. And the binder strategy has always gotten me really close to that. And sometimes if it's an empty one, I'll fix things and get better than that. So I don't have better numbers than what I was expecting, which is what happened with my triplex. I was looking and I thought I'd get a 12% and it hit 17 first year. So that was a great question. Thank you. Thank you, Laura. Investing Done Simple. Oh, awesome name. Howdy. Have you ever gone through the process of converting a basement into an additional unit? Any things I should keep in mind? In Washington, it rains so much. If you have a basement, it turns into an indoor pool. So not an issue I've had to deal with here. But any things you should keep in mind. First is egress. Are there 2 ways in and out? In other words, it can't be considered living space. Second is if you have a basement that doesn't meet the needs of height requirement for living space, it's easier to go down than to lift the house up. I've watched a lot of videos on places where they converted other areas to living spaces. So it's the 2 forms of egress, easier to go down, permit everything. Don't do anything that's not permitted. There are some areas where if the tenant finds out and work wasn't done that was permitted, that would be required to make it a living space, they can go to the local housing and complain, and you have to reimburse, not renew. Yeah, it's reimburse them for every rent, all the rent they've ever paid you. So not just that currently they don't have to pay rent living there. It's you have to give it all back, and then they can move out. So permit everything, make sure it's legal. That would be my suggestion there. Cool. Dawn, thanks. Have a great evening and a super cruise. Thank you. Does Matt get the alien vodka in your apps? I don't know that Matt drinks. Don't know, which is weird. I'm going to find out because he's going to go to Vegas and I'm going to meet him there when he goes. Larry, ciao. Awesome. You guys have been awesome. Thank you very much. Until my next video and glass of water. Thanks for coming to my Dion Talk.